Thus their proofs are void, and all their paths in this matter are but illusions, mere figments of imagination. They are powerless to reduce all things to the essence of a single self, nor can they reconcile all that they affirm with that same singular essence. For they have asserted that he is all-knowing, and this compels them to admit that such knowledge must be something beyond mere existence itself. So it is asked of them, do you concede that the first knows other than his own essence? Some among them affirm this, while others declare he knows naught but his own self. As for his knowledge of universals, the first opinion is that which Ibn Sina espoused. He claimed that the first knows all things in a universal manner, unbound by the constraints of time, yet he does not know particulars, for to encompass them anew would imply a change in the essence of the knower. We say then, is the knowledge of the first concerning the existence of all species and genera, whose numbers are boundless, identical to his knowledge of himself, or is it distinct? If you say it is distinct, then you have affirmed multiplicity and shattered your own principle. And if you claim it is identical, then you differ not from those who assert that a human's knowledge of himself is indistinguishable from his knowledge of other things. Yet it has been said, the boundary of a singular thing is such that it is impossible even in imagination to unite within it both negation and affirmation. Since knowledge of a singular thing is itself singular, it cannot be conceived as both existent and non-existent in the same state. And since it is not impossible in imagination to conceive a human's knowledge of himself without knowledge of others, it is said, his knowledge of others is distinct from his knowledge of himself. For if they were one and the same, negating one would negate the other, and affirming one would affirm the other. It is impossible that Zaid be both existent and non-existent, meaning the very same Zaid in a single state. Yet such impossibility does not apply to knowledge of others alongside knowledge of oneself, for it is conceivable to imagine the existence of one without the other. Thus they are two distinct things. It is not possible to imagine the existence of his essence without the existence of his essence. If all were as they claim, such imagination would be an absurdity. Hence, every philosopher who acknowledges that the first knows other than his essence has inevitably affirmed multiplicity. Their assertion that his knowledge of his essence as the origin of all leads to his knowing all things by secondary intention is flawed. If it is said he does not know others by primary intention but knows his essence as the origin of all, it follows that he must know all by secondary intention, for he cannot know his essence except as an origin. This is the very truth of his essence, nor can he know his essence as the origin of others without others entering into his knowledge by way of implication and necessity. It is not far-fetched that his essence should have concomitants, and this does not entail multiplicity in the nature of the essence itself. What is forbidden is multiplicity within the very essence. We respond, his knowledge of the existence of his essence is distinct from his knowledge of being the origin of all. Our answer unfolds in several facets. First, your claim that he knows his essence as an origin is arbitrary. Rather, he should know only the existence of his essence. Knowledge of being an origin exceeds mere knowledge of existence, for originhood is a relational attribute added to the essence. It is possible to know the essence without knowing its relation. If originhood were not a relation, his essence would multiply, possessing both existence and originhood as two distinct things. Just as a human may know his essence without knowing that he's an effect until he learns of it, for being an effect is a relation to his cause, so too is being a cause a relation to its effect. Thus the obligation remains in their mere assertion that he knows himself as an origin, for it entails knowledge of the essence and of originhood, which is a relation. And a relation is not the essence itself, hence knowledge of the relation is distinct from knowledge of the essence, as we have proven by the fact that one can imagine knowledge of the essence without knowledge of originhood. But one cannot imagine knowledge of the essence without knowledge of the essence, for the essence is one. There are two known things, hence two knowledges. The second facet is that their claim that all is known to him by secondary intention is unintelligible. For if his knowledge encompasses others as it encompasses his essence, he would have two distinct known things and knowledge of both. The multiplicity and distinction of the known necessitate multiplicity in knowledge, since one of the known can be separated from the other in imagination. Thus, knowledge of one cannot be identical to knowledge of the other, for if it were, it would be impossible to conceive the existence of one without the other. Yet no such impossibility exists, no matter how unified the whole may be. This does not change whether it is expressed as secondary intention. Universals are infinite. How I wonder that one who denies multiplicity can claim that not an atom's weight in the heavens or the earth escapes his knowledge, asserting that he knows all in a universal manner, and that the universals known to him are infinite. Thus, the knowledge related to them, despite their multiplicity and diversity, is claimed to be utterly one. Ibn Sina does not shy away from the implication of multiplicity, though he diverges from other philosophers who held that he knows only himself to avoid multiplicity. How, then, does he join them in denying multiplicity while differing in affirming knowledge of others? He was too ashamed to say that God knows nothing at all in this world or the hereafter, knowing only himself, for then others would surpass him in knowledge, as they know both themselves and others. Thus he abandoned this view out of shame and aversion, yet did not hesitate to insist on denying multiplicity in every respect, claiming that his knowledge of himself, of others, and of all things is his very essence without addition, a clear contradiction that other philosophers shied away from due to its evident absurdity at first glance. Hence, no faction among them escapes disgrace in their doctrine. Such is the fate God decrees for those who stray from his path and presume to grasp the essence of divine matters through mere speculation and imagination. Their claim that knowledge can be unified, knowledge of the Father and the Son, for instance, is flawed. If it is established that he knows himself as an origin in a relational sense, then knowledge of the related is one. For whoever knows the Son knows him through a single act of knowing, which encompasses knowledge of the Father, fatherhood, and sonship implicitly. The known multiplies, yet the knowledge remains one. Similarly, he knows his essence as the origin of others, so the knowledge is unified even if the known multiplies. If this is understood in relation to a single effect and its relation to him without necessitating multiplicity, then an increase in what does not inherently cause multiplicity does not introduce multiplicity. Knowledge can encompass knowledge of a thing and knowledge of knowing that thing. Likewise, one who knows a thing and knows his knowledge of it knows it through that very knowledge. Every knowledge is, in a sense, knowledge of itself. You claim that God's known things are infinite, yet his knowledge is one. This is also evidenced by your view that God's known things are infinite, yet his knowledge is one, and you do not describe him as having infinite knowledges corresponding to their number. If multiplicity of the known necessitated multiplicity in the essence of knowledge, then God's essence would contain infinite knowledges, which is absurd. We say, this implies a greater multiplicity than if existence were added to essence. We assert whenever knowledge is utterly one in every respect, it cannot be conceived as relating to two known things. Rather, this necessitates multiplicity, according to the very framework and terminology of the philosophers in defining multiplicity. They even went so far as to say that if the first had an essence described by existence, it would entail multiplicity. They could not conceive of a singular thing possessing a reality that is then described by existence. Instead, they claimed that existence is added to the reality and distinct from it, thus necessitating multiplicity. On this basis, it is impossible to conceive of a knowledge related to numerous known things without some form of multiplicity arising, a multiplicity more evident and profound than that implied by existence added to essence. Their initial claim is void. As for knowledge of the Son and other relations, it entails multiplicity, for there must be knowledge of the essence of the Son and the essence of the Father, two knowledges, and a third, which is the relation. Indeed, this third is implicit in the preceding two knowledges, as they are its condition and necessity. Otherwise, without first knowing the related, the relation cannot be known. Thus, these are multiple knowledges, some conditional upon others. Similarly, If the first knows his essence as related to all genera and species by being their origin, he must know his essence, the individual genera, and the relation of originhood to them. Without this, the relation cannot be conceived as known to him. As for their second claim that whoever knows a thing knows that he knows it through the same knowledge, such that the known multiplies while the knowledge remains one, this is not so. Rather, he knows that he knows through another knowledge, and this continues until he reaches a knowledge of which he is unaware and does not know. We do not say this regresses infinitely. Rather, it terminates at a knowledge related to its object, where he is unaware of the existence of the knowledge itself, though not of the object. This is like one who knows blackness and, in the moment of knowing, is wholly absorbed by the object, blackness, while unaware of his knowledge of blackness and inattentive to it. If he turns his attention to it, he requires another knowledge, and this continues until his attention ceases. As for their third point, the burden of proof rests upon them. Regarding their claim that this issue rebounds upon us concerning God's infinite known things, while his knowledge, in our view, is one, we say, in this book, we have not engaged in the discourse of those who lay foundations, but in that of those who demolish and object. For this reason, we have named the book The Incoherence of the Philosophers, not the Foundation of Truth. Thus, we are not obligated to provide this answer. Their claim that the issue poses a dilemma for all factions is flawed. If it is said, we do not hold you to the doctrine of a specific faction among the sects. As for what rebounds upon all creation and is equally problematic for all, you are not permitted to raise it, for this dilemma applies to you as well, and no faction can escape it. We say, our aim is to cast doubt upon your claims. We assert, no, our purpose is to render you incapable of claiming to know the realities of things through decisive proofs and to instill doubt in your assertions. You object to the believers in the messenger. When your incapacity becomes evident, there are those among people who hold that the realities of divine matters cannot be attained through intellectual speculation, for it is not within human capacity to apprehend them. For this reason, the Master of the Law said, reflect upon the creation of God, but do not reflect upon the essence of God. So, what is your objection to this faction that believes in the truth of the messenger through the evidence of miracles, limits the role of reason to affirming the essence of the sender, refrains from speculating on the attributes through reason, follows the Master of the Law in what he has brought concerning God's attributes, adheres to his path in affirming the knower, the willing, the able, and the living, abstains from affirming what has not been permitted, and confesses the incapacity of reason to grasp such matters. We, in turn, object to you. Your criticism of them rests on attributing ignorance to them regarding the paths of proofs and the arrangement of premises in syllogistic forms, and your claim that you have known these through rational methods. Yet your incapacity, the incoherence of your paths, and the exposure of your claims to knowledge have become manifest, and this is the purpose of this exposition. Where, then, is the one who claims that theological proofs are as conclusive as geometrical proofs? Their claim that the first knows only himself is flawed. If it is said this dilemma applies only to Ibn Sina, who claimed that the first knows others. As for the true philosophers, they have agreed that he knows only himself, and thus this dilemma is averted. We say, how shameful is this doctrine! Were it not for its utter baseness, later thinkers would not have shunned defending it. We point out the disgrace inherent in it, for it elevates his effects above him. Angels, humans, and every rational being know themselves, their origin, and others, while the first knows only himself. Thus he is deficient compared to individual humans, let alone angels. Even a beast aware of itself knows other matters beyond itself. There is no doubt that knowledge is a nobility, and its absence a deficiency. Where then is their claim that he is both lover and beloved, possessing the most perfect splendor and the most complete beauty? What beauty can there be in a simple existence devoid of essence, reality, or awareness of what transpires in the world, of what pertains to his essence, or of what proceeds from him? What deficiency in God's knowledge could surpass this? The philosophers have reached such a nadir. Let the rational marvel at a group who delve deeply into speculative matters, only to conclude that the sustainer of lords and the cause of causes has no knowledge whatsoever of what occurs in the world. What difference is there between him and the dead, save for his knowledge of himself? What perfection lies in knowing himself while being ignorant of others? This doctrine's very form suffices to expose its disgrace without need for lengthy elaboration. The essence is distinct from knowledge of the essence, as in the case of a human. Then it is said to them, "You have not escaped multiplicity despite embracing these disgraces." We say, is his knowledge of his essence identical to his essence or distinct from it? If you say it is distinct, multiplicity arises. If you claim it is identical, what distinguishes you from one who says that a human's knowledge of his essence is identical to his essence? This is folly, for one can conceive the existence of his essence in a state of heedlessness of it, after which his heedlessness lifts, and he becomes aware of his essence. Thus, his awareness of his essence is inevitably distinct from his essence. Their claim that a human may acquire knowledge, making it distinct, is flawed. If they say, a human may be devoid of knowledge of his essence, and it comes to him later, so it must be distinct, we say, the possibility of the essence itself coming into being can be conceived. We assert otherness is not known through acquisition or association, for the essence of a thing cannot come to the thing itself, and what is other, even if associated with the thing, does not become identical to it nor cease to be other. That the first has always been knowing of his essence does not prove that his knowledge of his essence is identical to his essence. Imagination can conceive the essence and then the emergence of awareness. If it were identical to the essence, such imagination would be inconceivable. Their claim that his essence is intellect and knowledge is flawed. If it is said, his essence is intellect and knowledge, so he has no essence followed by knowledge subsisting in him, we say this is evident folly. They reduce God to the realities of attributes. We assert, knowledge is an attribute and an accident requiring a subject. To say that he is, in his essence, intellect and knowledge is akin to saying he is power and will, subsisting by himself. If it is said that it subsists in him, it is like saying of blackness and whiteness that they subsist by themselves, or of quantity, squareness, and triangularity that they subsist by themselves. This applies to all accidents. Just as it is impossible for the attributes of bodies to subsist independently without a body distinct from the attributes, so too it is known that the attributes of the living, knowledge, life, power, and will, do not subsist independently but in an essence. Life subsists in the essence, so his life is through it, and so with all other attributes. Thus, they were not content with stripping the first of all attributes, nor with denying him reality and essence, until they also denied him subsistence by himself and reduced him to the realities of attributes and accidents that have no independent subsistence. Nor do they establish proof for his being knowing. We will show in a separate discussion their inability to provide proof that he is knowing of himself and of others. A discussion on refuting their claim that the first cannot share a genus with others and differ by a specific difference, and that division into genus and species cannot apply to him in the realm of intellect. Their view is that they have agreed upon this and built upon it the notion that if he does not share with others a generic meaning, he cannot be distinguished from them by a specific difference. Thus he has no definition, for a definition comprises genus and difference, and what has no composition has no definition. This is a form of composition. They claim that to say he equals the first effect in being existent, a substance, and a cause of others, while differing in something else, does not constitute sharing in genus, but in a general concomitant. There is a distinction between genus and concomitant in reality, even if they do not differ in generality, as is known in logic. For the essential genus is the general term used in answer to what is it, and enters into the essence of the defined thing constituting its very being. That a human is living enters into the essence of a human, meaning animality, and thus is a genus. That he is born or created is a concomitant that never departs from him, yet it does not enter into his essence, though it is a general concomitant. This is known in logic beyond dispute. Their claim that existence does not enter into the essence of things is flawed. They asserted that existence never enters into the essence of things, but is added to the essence either as an inseparable concomitant, as with the heavens, or as something that comes after non-existence, as with originated things. Thus, sharing in existence is not sharing in genus, nor does being a cause enter into it. As for sharing in being a cause of others, like other causes, this is sharing in a necessary relational attribute that does not enter into the essence. For neither originhood nor existence constitutes the essence, but are necessary concomitants of the essence after the essence is constituted by its essential parts. Thus, sharing in them is sharing in a general concomitant that follows the essence, not in genus. Therefore, things are defined only by their constitutive elements. If defined by concomitants, it is a description for distinction, not for depicting the true reality of the thing. One does not say in defining a triangle that it is that whose angles equal 2 right angles, though this is a general concomitant of every triangle. Rather, it is said that it is a shape bounded by 3 sides. Nor does being a substance enter into it. Likewise, sharing in being a substance, meaning an existent not in a subject, does not make the existent a genus. Adding a negative condition that it is not in a subject does not make it a constitutive genus. Even if an affirmative condition were added, saying existent in a subject, it would not become a genus in the case of an accident. This is because one who knows a substance by its description, which is like a definition, namely an existent not in a subject, does not thereby know its existence, let alone whether it is in a subject or not. Our statement in describing a substance as an existent not in a subject means a reality that, if it exists, exists not in a subject. We do not mean that it exists actually at the moment of definition. Thus, sharing in it is not sharing in genus. Rather, necessary existence belongs to the first alone, not to others. Sharing in the constitutive elements of essence is sharing in genus, necessitating differentiation by a specific difference thereafter. The first has no essence other than necessary existence. Necessary existence is a true nature and essence in itself, belonging to him alone, not to others. Since necessary existence belongs only to him, he does not share it with others, nor is he distinguished from them by a specific difference. Thus, he has no definition. We say, this is an exposition of their doctrine. Our discourse on it proceeds in 2 ways, demand and refutation. As for the demand, it is to ask, this is a narration of your doctrine. How did you come to know the impossibility of this in the case of the first, such that you built upon it the denial of duality, saying that the second must share something with him and differ in something else, and that what involves sharing and differentiation is impossible for the first? We say, how did you come to know the impossibility of this type of composition? And there is no proof for it except your narrated claim regarding the denial of attributes, namely that a composite of genus and difference is composed of parts. If it is possible for one part or the whole to exist without the other, then it is necessarily existent without the other. If it is not possible for the parts to exist without the whole, nor the whole without the parts, then all are effects and in need. We have spoken of this in the context of attributes, and shown that it is not impossible in cutting off the chain of causes. Proof does not indicate cutting off the chain, rather it indicates only cutting off the chain. As for the grand claims they invented regarding the necessity of describing the necessarily existent as such, no proof supports them. If the necessarily existent is as they described, having no multiplicity and not needing another for its subsistence, there is no proof for affirming a necessarily existent being. Proof indicates only the cutting off of the chain, and we have concluded this in the discussion of attributes. There is no complete distinction between genus and difference, and this is clearer in this type. For the division of a thing into genus and difference is not like the division of a subject into essence and attribute, for the attribute is distinct from the essence, and the essence is distinct from the attribute. The species is not entirely distinct from the genus. Whenever we mention the species, we mention the genus with an addition. When we mention human, we mention only animal with the addition of rationality. Thus, to ask whether humanity can dispense with animality is like asking whether humanity can dispense with itself if something else is added to it. This is farther from multiplicity than attribute and subject. If the distinction in difference is not complete, from what perspective is it impossible that the chain of effects terminates at two causes, one the cause of the heavens and the other of the elements, or one the cause of intellects and the other of all bodies, with the distinction and difference in meaning between them as between redness and heat in a single locus? They differ in meaning without us positing in redness a generic and specific composition such that it admits separation. Even if there is multiplicity in it, it is a type of multiplicity that does not impair the unity of the essence. From what perspective is this impossible in causes? Through this, their inability to deny two creator gods becomes evident. A discourse on the nature of necessary existence and the refutation of erroneous conceptions. Either this is a condition for the necessity of existence, or it is not, and in neither case does the argument hold true. If it be said that this impossibility arises from the distinction between two essences, if such distinction were a condition for necessary existence, then it must be present for every necessarily existent being, and thus no distinction would remain between them. And if it were not a condition, nor the other a condition, then anything not required for the necessity of existence would be deemed superfluous, and necessary existence would be complete without it. To this we respond, this is precisely what you have mentioned concerning the attributes, and we have already addressed it. The root of this confusion lies in the term necessarily existent, so let it be discarded, for we do not concede that reason points to a necessarily existent, unless what is meant by it is an existent without a cause, eternal in its being. If this is indeed the intended meaning, then abandon the term necessarily existent, and clarify that it refers to an existent without cause or agent for whom multiplicity and distinction are impossible and upon whom no proof can be established. Some distinction is indeed a condition for the being of colour as colour, yet their claim persists. Is this distinction a condition for the absence of a cause? This is mere folly, for we have already clarified that what has no cause cannot be explained by a cause for its causelessness, such that a condition for it should be sought. It is akin to someone asking, is blackness a condition for colour being colour? If it were a condition, why then is redness also a colour? To this we say, in its essence neither is a condition, in the establishment of the concept of colourness in the intellect. But as for its existence, one of them is indeed a condition, though not specifically one over the other. That is, no genus can exist except with a differentia. Similarly, one who posits two causes and halts the chain of causality with them might say, they are distinguished by a differentia, and one of the differentia is inevitably a condition for existence, though not specifically determined. Their assertion that the necessity of existence is like the existence of colourness, not its essence, prompts the objection. This may be permissible for colour, for it possesses an existence added to its essence, beyond its essence. Yet it is not permissible for the necessarily existent, for it has naught but the necessity of existence, with no essence to which existence is added. Just as the differentia of blackness and the differentia of redness are not conditions for colourness in its being colourness, but are conditions for its existence, which comes about through a cause, so too it should not be a condition for necessary existence. For the necessary existence of the first is like colourness to colour, not like the existence added to colourness. To this we reply, nay, and the discussion of this matter shall follow. We do not concede this, for it possesses an essence described by existence, as we shall elucidate in the subsequent issue. Their claim that it is an existence without essence is beyond the realm of the conceivable. The crux of the discourse returns to their foundation of denying duality upon denying generic and specific composition and denying an essence beyond existence. Thus, if we invalidate the latter, the existence beyond essence, which is the foundation of their foundation, then their entire edifice collapses, a structure frail in its establishment, akin to the fragile webs of spiders. The intellect is shared between the first and the first effect. The second approach is that of compulsion, wherein we say, if existence, substantiality, and origin are not genera, for they are not predicated in answer to what is it, then the first, according to you, is a pure intellect, just as the other intellects, which are the principles of existence, termed by them as angels, are pure intellects devoid of matter. These are effects of the first, pure intellects free from material constraints. This essence encompasses both the first and its first effect, for the first effect is also simple, without composition in its essence, except in terms of its concomitants. They share in that each is a pure intellect detached from matter, and this is an essential generic reality. The pure intellectuality of the essence is not a concomitant, but is the very essence itself, shared between the first and the other intellects. If it is not distinguished by something else, then you have conceived duality without distinction. And if it is distinguished, then that by which it is distinguished is other than that by which it is shared, namely intellectuality. This sharing pertains to the essence of both, a sharing in reality. For the first is an intellect of itself and of others, according to those who hold this view, insofar as it is, in its essence, a pure intellect free from matter. Likewise, the first effect, the first intellect which God originated without intermediary, shares in this meaning. The proof of this lies in the fact that the intellects, which are effects, are of various kinds, sharing in intellectuality while differing through differentiae beyond that. So too, the first shares with them all in intellectuality. Thus they are caught between contradicting their principle or conceding that intellectuality is not constitutive of the essence, both of which are impossible in their view. An issue concerning the refutation of their claim that the existence of the first is simple, that is, pure existence without essence or reality to which existence is added. Rather, the necessary existence of the first is akin to an essence requiring proof. The discourse on this matter proceeds from two perspectives. The first is the demand for proof, wherein it is asked, by what means did you come to know this? Is it through necessity or contemplation? It is not necessary, so a path of contemplation must be articulated. Their claim is, the necessary existence would be an effect, which is impossible. If it be said, if it had an essence, existence would be added to it, dependent upon it, and necessarily tied to it, and that which is dependent is an effect, rendering the necessary existence an effect, a contradiction. To this we reply, this is impossible only if it has no efficient cause. We say, this returns to the source of confusion in the unrestricted use of the term necessary existence. For we assert it possesses an essence and a reality, and that reality is existent, that is, not non-existent or negated. Its existence is added to it, and if they wish to call it dependent or necessary, there is no dispute over terminology once it is understood that there is no agent for its existence. Rather, this existence has ever been eternal, without an efficient cause. If by dependent and effect they mean it has an efficient cause, this is not so. If they mean something else, it is conceded, and there is no impossibility in it, for the proof indicates only the termination of the chain of causes. Their claim that the essence would be an active cause prompts the objection. The essence would be a cause for the existence that is dependent upon it, rendering existence an effect and a product. To this we say, that is, it cannot be independent of it. We respond, the essence in contingent things is not a cause for existence, so how could it be in the eternal? If by cause they mean an active cause, and if they mean something else, namely that it cannot be independent of it, then let it be so, for there is no impossibility in this. The impossibility lies only in the infinite regress of causes. Once this regress is terminated, the impossibility is removed. Beyond this, no impossibility is known, and a proof of its impossibility must be provided. All their proofs are mere assertions, built upon taking the term necessary existence. With implications they assume the proof has established, which it has not, as previously mentioned. It is a grave error to say every existent essence is multiple. In summary, their proof in this regard reverts to the proof of negating attributes and negating generic and specific division, though it is more obscure and weaker. For this multiplicity returns to mere terminology, otherwise the intellect can conceive of a single existent essence. They say every existent essence is multiple, for it comprises essence and existence. This is the height of misguidance, for the singular existent is conceivable in every state, and no existent lacks an essence. The existence of an essence does not negate unity. Existence without essence or reality is unimaginable. The second approach is to say, existence without essence or reality is beyond conception. Just as we cannot conceive of non-existence in isolation except in relation to an existent whose non-existence is posited, so too we cannot conceive of existence in isolation except in relation to a specific reality, especially when it is determined as a singular essence. How then can it be singular, distinguished from others in meaning, without possessing a reality? For negating essence is negating reality, and if the reality of the existent is negated, existence itself becomes inconceivable. It is, as if they say, existence without an existent, a contradiction. Negating essence from existence is not conceivable even in effects. The proof of this is that if this were conceivable, it would be possible for effects to have existence without reality, sharing with the first the absence of essence and reality, yet differing in that they have a cause while the first does not. Why then is this not conceivable in effects? Is there a reason except that it is inherently unimaginable? What is unimaginable in itself does not become conceivable by negating its cause, and what is conceivable does not cease to be so by positing a cause for it. Their discourse reaches the depths of darkness, for they believed they were exalting through their claims, yet their words culminated in pure negation. Negating essence negates their claim that its essence is that it is necessary. If it be said, its reality is that it is necessary, and this is its essence. We respond, existence without a cause does not dispense with essence. We say, the meaning of necessary is nothing but the negation of a cause, which is a privation that does not constitute an essential reality. The negation of a cause from a reality is a concomitant of that reality. Let the reality be conceivable so that it may be described as having no cause and its non-existence be unimaginable. For the meaning of necessity is nothing but this. Moreover, if necessity adds to existence, multiplicity arises, and if it does not add, how can it be the essence when existence is not an essence? So too with that which does not exceed it, an issue concerning their inability to establish proof that the first is not a body. We say, what prevents the first from being an eternal body? This holds only for those who view a body as contingent due to its inseparability from contingencies, and every contingent requires a cause. As for you, if you conceive of an eternal body without a beginning to its existence, despite their claim that the first does not admit division, while a body is necessarily composite, they argue, a body is inevitably composite, divisible into parts by quantity, into matter and form by conceptual division, and into attributes by which it is distinguished, such that it differs from other bodies. Otherwise bodies would be equal in being bodies, and the necessarily existent is one, admitting no division in these ways. To this we reply, we have already invalidated this. We say, we have refuted this against you and shown that you have no proof for it, except that a composite, if some of its parts depend on others, is an effect. We have discussed this and clarified that if it is not far-fetched to conceive of an existent without a creator, it is not far-fetched to conceive of a composite without a composer, or existence without a creator. For you have built the negation of multiplicity and duality upon the negation of composition, and the negation of composition upon the negation of essence beyond existence. Since the latter, which is the ultimate foundation, has been uprooted, and your arbitrariness in it exposed, your argument collapses. Their claim that a body without a soul cannot be an agent, and if it has a soul, the soul is its cause, prompts the objection. If a body has no soul, it cannot be an agent, and if it has a soul, the soul is its cause. To this we reply, nay, we say, our soul is not the cause of our body's existence, nor is the soul of the sphere by itself the cause of its body's existence according to you. Rather, they both exist through a cause other than themselves. If their eternal existence is possible, it is possible that they have no cause. Their question, how did their union come about? If it be said, how did the union of soul and body occur? We respond, what prevents it if both are eternal? We say, it is like someone asking, how did the existence of the first come about? To which it is replied, this is a question about something contingent. As for that which has ever been existent, it is not asked how it came to be. Similarly, if the body and its soul have ever been existent, it is not far-fetched that they be creators. Their claim that a body does not create another and a soul creates only through the body prompts the objection. A body, as a body, does not create another, and a soul attached to a body acts only through the body, and the body cannot be a medium for the soul in creating bodies or originating souls and things incompatible with bodies. To this we reply, this is a matter for which there is no proof. We say, why is it not possible that among souls there be one with a unique quality enabling it to bring into existence both bodies and non-bodies? The impossibility of this is neither known by necessity nor established by proof, except that we have not witnessed it among these observable bodies. Yet the absence of observation does not prove impossibility. They have attributed to the first existent what is not attributed to any other existent, though we have not witnessed it in others, and the absence of observation in others does not prove its impossibility in it. So too with the soul of the body and the body itself. Their claim that a body is determined by a measure prompts the objection. The outermost body, or the sun, or any measured body is determined by a measure that could increase or decrease, thus requiring a specifier for its specific measure, and it would not be the first. To this we reply, this measure corresponds to the order of the whole. We say, how do you deny one who says that body has a measure that must be as it is for the order of the whole, and if it were smaller or larger, it would not be permissible, just as you say that the first effect emanates the outermost sphere in a determined measure, and all measures are equal relative to the essence of the first effect, but some measures are determined because the order depends on them, so the measure that occurred was necessary and could not be otherwise. Similarly, if it is conceived as uncaused. We say, if you posit a principle of specification, you are compelled to allow specification without a cause. Even if they posited in the first effect, which according to them is the cause of the outermost sphere, a principle of specification like will, the question would not cease, for it would be asked, why did it will this measure over another? Just as they compelled the Muslims regarding their attribution of things to the eternal will, we have turned this against them concerning the direction of the heavens' motion and the determination of the two poles. Let this be applied to the uncaused as well. If it becomes clear that they are compelled to allow the distinction of a thing from its like in occurrence without a cause, allowing it without a cause is like allowing it with a cause. For there is no difference between the question being directed at the thing itself, why was it specified with this measure? And at the cause, why did it specify it with this measure over its like? If the question about the cause can be answered by saying that this measure is not like others, for the order is tied to it and not to others, then the question about the thing itself can be answered similarly, without needing a cause. There is no escape from this. For if this specific measure that occurred is like that which did not occur, the question persists, how was the thing distinguished from its like, especially on their principle, as they deny a distinguishing will? If it is not like it, possibility is not established. Rather, it is said, it occurred thus eternally, just as the eternal cause occurred, according to their claim. Refer to what has been previously mentioned, and let the reader draw from what we have presented to them regarding the question of eternal will, which we turned against them concerning the point of the pole and the direction of the sphere's motion. In conclusion, it becomes clear that one who does not believe in the contingency of bodies cannot establish proof that the first is not a body at all. An issue concerning their inability to establish proof that the world has a creator and a cause. We say, one who holds that every body is contingent because it is inseparable from contingencies understands their doctrine that it requires a creator and a cause. As for you, what prevents you from adopting the view of the eternalists, that the world is eternal as it is without a cause or creator, and that causes pertain only to contingencies? For no body comes into being in the world, nor does any body cease to be. Rather, forms and accidents come into being. The bodies are the heavens which are eternal, and the four elements which are the content of the lunar sphere, and their bodies and matters are eternal. Only their forms change through combinations and transformations, and human and vegetal souls come into being. These contingencies have causes that culminate in the eternal circular motion, whose source is an eternal soul of the sphere. Thus there is no cause or creator for the world or its bodies. Rather, it has ever been as it is, eternal without a cause, meaning the bodies. What, then, is the meaning of their claim that these bodies exist by a cause while being eternal? Their assertion that it cannot be necessarily existent, which is impossible, prompts the objection: everything without a cause is necessarily existent, and we have described the attributes of the necessarily existent, showing that a body cannot be necessarily existent. To this we reply, rather the chain of causes is terminated. We say, we have demonstrated the invalidity of what you claim about the attributes of the necessarily existent, and that the proof indicates only the termination of the chain of causes. This chain is terminated for the eternalist from the outset, as he says, there is no cause for the bodies. As for forms and accidents, some are causes for others, until they culminate in the circular motion, which is a cause for some, as per the philosopher's doctrine, and the chain terminates with it. Whoever contemplates what we have mentioned will recognize the inability of anyone who believes in the eternity of bodies to claim a cause for them, leading to eternalism and atheism, as some have explicitly stated, for they have fulfilled the logical conclusion of these views. Their claim that bodies are not necessarily existent, thus possible, prompts the objection: the proof is that these bodies are either necessarily existent, which is impossible, or possible, and every possible requires a cause. To this we reply, why could they not be without a cause? We say the terms necessarily existent and possibly existent are not understood, for all their confusions are shrouded in these two terms. Let us turn to the concept, which is the negation or affirmation of a cause. It is as if they say, do these bodies have a cause or not? The eternalist says they have no cause. What then is objectionable? If by possibility this is meant, we say, it is necessary. Their claim that the parts are prior in essence to the whole prompts the objection. It is undeniable that a body has parts, and the whole is constituted by the parts, and the parts are prior in essence to the whole. To this we reply, you cannot refute the negation of multiplicity. We say, let it be so. The whole is constituted by the parts and their assembly, and there is no cause for the parts or their assembly. Rather, they are eternal as such without an efficient cause. They cannot refute this except by what they mentioned about the necessity of negating multiplicity from the first existent, which we have invalidated against them, and they have no other recourse. In conclusion, it becomes clear that one who does not believe in the contingency of bodies has no basis for belief in a creator at all. An issue concerning the inability of those among them who claim that the first knows others and knows species and genera in a universal manner. We say, the proof of the Muslims is sound. We say, as for the Muslims, since existence for them is confined to the contingent and the eternal, and they hold that there is no eternal except God and his attributes, and everything else is contingent by his will, they arrived at a necessary premise concerning his knowledge. For what is meant by necessity must be known to the one who wills. Thus they built upon this that everything is known to him, for everything is willed by him and contingent by his will. There is no existent except that it is contingent by his will, leaving only his essence. Once it is established that he is a willing knower of what he wills, it follows by necessity that he is living, and every living being knows others, so he is more worthy of knowing himself. Thus everything became known to God in their view, and they recognized this through this path after it became clear to them that he is willing to bring the world into being. As for you, what is your proof? Since you claim that the world is eternal and not brought into being by his will, from where did you deduce that he knows other than his essence? A proof for this must be provided. Their claim that an existent not in matter comprehends all intelligibles, and the essence of what Ibn Sina mentioned in verifying this in his discourse, returns to two arts. The first is an existent not in matter, and every existent not in matter is pure intellect, and everything that is pure intellect has all intelligibles unveiled to it. For the impediment to perceiving all things is attachment to matter and preoccupation with it. The human soul is preoccupied with managing matter, that is, the body. When this preoccupation ceases at death, and if it has not been tainted by bodily desires and vile traits transferred to it from natural affairs, the realities of all intelligibles are unveiled to it. Therefore he judged that all angels know all intelligibles, with nothing escaping them, for they too are pure intellects not in matter. To this, we reply, the conclusion requires proof. We say, your statement that the first is an existent not in matter, if by this you mean it is not a body, nor imprinted in a body, but subsists by itself without spatiality or association with a direction, this is conceded. What remains is your claim. What possesses this attribute is a pure intellect. What do you mean by intellect? If you mean that which comprehends all things, this is the very matter in dispute and the object sought. How, then, do you take it as a premise in the syllogism for the sought conclusion? If you mean something else, that it comprehends itself, perhaps your fellow philosophers concede this to you, but the essence of it returns to the claim that what comprehends itself comprehends others. To this it is said, why do you claim this? It is not necessary, and Ibn Sina diverged from other philosophers in this regard. How then do you claim it as necessary? If it is speculative, what is the proof for it? Their claim that matter is an impediment to perceiving things prompts the objection. The impediment and matter do not align. We say, we concede that it is an impediment, but we do not concede that it is the only impediment. Their syllogism is structured as a conditional syllogism, which is to say, if this is in matter, it does not comprehend things, but it is not in matter, therefore it comprehends things. This is the exclusion of the opposite of the antecedent, and the exclusion of the opposite of the antecedent does not produce a conclusion by consensus. It is like saying, if this is a human, it is an animal, but it is not a human, therefore it is not an animal. This does not follow, for it may not be a human, yet be a horse, and thus be an animal. Indeed, the exclusion of the opposite of the antecedent produces the opposite of the consequent, as mentioned in logic, under a condition. The converse of the consequent to the antecedent must hold, which occurs through restriction. This is like their saying, if the sun is rising, the day exists. But the sun is not rising, therefore the day does not exist, for the existence of the day has no cause other than the rising of the sun, so one is converse to the other. The explanation of these structures and terms is understood in the book Madarik al-Uqul, Perceptions of Intellects, which we have authored as an appendix to this book. Their claim that they align prompts the objection. We claim reciprocity, that the impediment is restricted to matter with no other impediment. To this we reply, what is the proof for this? Their claim that everything is from the act of the first, the second art, states, even if we do not say that the first wills contingencies, nor that everything is contingent in a temporal sense, we say that it is his act, and it has emanated from him, though he has ever been in the state of agents, ever acting. We differ from others only in this regard, but not in the essence of the act. If it is established that the agent must, by consensus, know his act, then everything, in our view, is from his act. To this we reply, then his act is necessary. The response is from two perspectives. First, acts are of two kinds. Volitional, as in the acts of animals and humans, and natural, as in the act of the sun in illumination, fire in heating, and water in cooling. Knowledge of the act is necessary only in volitional acts, as in human crafts, but not in natural acts. According to you, God acts upon the world by way of necessity from his essence, by nature and compulsion, not by will and choice. Rather, everything necessarily follows from his essence, as light follows the sun. Just as the sun has no power to withhold light, nor fire to withhold heat, so too the first has no power to withhold his acts. Exalted is he above their claims, a great exaltation. This mode, though it may be called an act by convention, does not necessitate knowledge on the part of the agent at all. If it be said, there is a difference between the two matters, for everything emanated from his essence, due to his knowledge of everything. and the universal order is represented as the cause of the emanation of everything, with no origin for it other than knowledge of everything, and knowledge of everything is his very essence. Thus, if he had no knowledge of everything, everything would not have emanated from him, unlike light from the sun. A discourse on divine will, knowledge, and the nature of creation. We submit, if the will is negated, what then prevents the transformation of this doctrine? We say, herein lies a divergence from your brethren, for they have proclaimed that his essence is such that it necessitates the existence of all things in their ordered hierarchy by nature and compulsion, not by virtue of his knowledge of them. What then renders this doctrine untenable, even if you concur with them in negating the will? Why is it not required for the sun to know its light in order for light to necessarily emanate from it? Rather, light follows it by inevitability. Let this be imagined in the case of the first cause, for there is no impediment to it. The knowledge of the first may be confined to the first effect alone, and this is an impossibility from another perspective. The second aspect is that, if it be granted that the emanation of a thing from the agent necessitates knowledge of what emanates, then, according to them, God's act is singular, being the first effect, which is a simple intellect. Thus, he ought to know naught but it, and the first effect in turn should know only what emanates from it. For all things did not come into being from God at once, but through mediation, generation, and necessity. Therefore, what emanates from him should not be known to him, since only one thing emanated directly from him. This necessity does not hold in the case of voluntary action, so how could it in the natural? Consider the movement of a stone from the top of a mountain. It may be initiated by a voluntary act that necessitates knowledge of the initial motion, yet it does not necessitate knowledge of what arises through mediation, such as collisions or the breaking of other things. To this there is no rejoinder. They say, if the first knows only himself, then the effects surpass him in nobility. And if it be said, were we to decree that he knows only himself, it would be the height of ignominy, for others know themselves, know him and know others besides, thus exceeding him in nobility. How could the effect be nobler than the cause? We respond, this is an inescapable consequence. We submit this ignominy is a necessary outcome of the philosophical premise that negates the will and the temporality of the world. It must be embraced, as other philosophers have embraced it, or philosophy must be abandoned, and it must be confessed that the world is temporal, brought into being by will. Alternatively, this premise must be refuted. Then it may be asked, by what do you deny those philosophers who claim that this does not constitute an increase in nobility? For knowledge is needed by others to attain perfection, as they are deficient in their essence. Man gains nobility through intelligibles, either to discern what benefits him in the outcomes of this world and the hereafter, or to complete his darkened, imperfect essence, and so it is with all other created beings. But the essence of God is self-sufficient, beyond any need for completion. Were knowledge to be attributed to him as a means of perfection, his essence, in and of itself, would be deemed deficient. Just as his knowledge of particulars is considered a deficiency, so too is his knowledge of universals. This is akin to what you have said regarding hearing, sight, and knowledge of temporal particulars. For you have agreed with other philosophers that God is exalted above such attributes, and that the changing realities subject to time, divided into past, present, and future, are not known to the first, for that would entail change and affectability in his essence. The absence of such knowledge is not a deficiency but a perfection, for deficiency lies in the senses and the need for them. Were it not for the deficiency of man, he would not require senses to guard against what might alter him through change. Likewise, knowledge of temporal particulars is, in your view, a deficiency. If we know all events and perceive all sensibles, while the first knows nothing of particulars and perceives nothing of the sensible world, and this is not deemed a deficiency, then knowledge of universal intelligibles may also be affirmed for others and not for him, without it constituting a deficiency. From this there is no escape. A question on their incapacity to establish proof that he knows his essence. We say, when the Muslims recognized the temporality of the world through his will, they inferred knowledge from will, then from both will and knowledge they inferred life, and from life they concluded that every living being is aware of itself and being alive knows its essence. This is a rational method of utmost rigor. As for you who negate will and temporality, claiming that what emanates from him does so by necessity and nature, how far removed you are. His essence might be such that only the first effect emanates from it, and from the first effect the second, until the entire hierarchy of existence is complete, yet he remains unaware of his essence, just as fire is unaware of its heat and the sun of its light. Neither knows itself, just as neither knows anything else. Indeed, whoever knows himself knows what emanates from him, and thus knows others. We have shown from their doctrine that he does not know others, and we have compelled those who differ from them to align with their position by the logic of their premise. If he does not know others, it is not far-fetched that he does not know himself. They say, the first would then be dead. If it be said, whoever does not know himself is dead, so how could the first be dead? We respond, if you negate attributes from the first, what need has he to know himself? We submit. This is a necessary consequence of your doctrine, for there is no distinction between you and those who say, whoever does not act by will, power and choice, who neither hears nor sees, is dead, and whoever does not know others is dead. If it is possible for the first to be devoid of all these attributes, what need has he to know his essence? If they revert to claiming that every being free of matter is intellect by its essence, and thus intellects itself, we have shown that this is mere assertion, unsupported by proof. They say, the living is nobler than the dead. If it be said, the proof of this is that existence is divided into the living and the dead, and the living is prior and nobler than the dead, and the first is prior and noblest. So let him be living, and every living being is aware of its essence, for it is impossible that among his effects there be living beings while he is not living. We respond, it is not impossible for the effect to be nobler than the cause. We submit, these are mere assertions, for we say, it is not impossible that from what does not know itself there should emanate, through many intermediaries or directly, something that knows itself. If the impediment to this is that the effect would be nobler than the cause, why is it impossible for the effect to be nobler than the cause? This is not self-evident. His nobility may lie not in knowing his essence, but in being the origin of essences that possess knowledge. By what do you deny that his nobility lies in the fact that the existence of all things depends on his essence, not on his knowledge? The proof of this is that others may know things beyond their essence, may see and hear, while he neither sees nor hears. If someone were to say, existence is divided into the seeing and the blind, the knowing and the ignorant, so let the seeing be prior, and let the first be seeing and knowing of things, you would deny this and say, nobility lies not in sight or knowledge of things, but in being independent of sight and knowledge, and in having an essence from which all things, including the knowers and the seeing, emanate. Likewise, there is no nobility in knowing one's essence, but in being the origin of essences that possess knowledge, and this is a unique nobility specific to him. In conclusion, there is no proof for these matters if they are taken solely from the perspective of reason. By necessity, they are compelled to negate his knowledge of his essence as well, for nothing points to it save will, and nothing points to will save the temporality of the world. If the latter is invalidated, so too is all of this, for those who derive these matters from rational speculation. All that they have mentioned regarding the attributes of the first, whether affirmed or negated, lacks evidence beyond conjectures and suppositions, which even jurists would disdain in matters of probability. It is no wonder that reason falters in grasping divine attributes. The true wonder lies in their astonishment at themselves and their proofs, and in their conviction that they have attained certain knowledge of these matters despite the confusion and disorder therein. The particulars divided by the division of time into what was, what is, and what will be, their consensus on this issue is evident. For those among them who hold that he knows only himself, this is manifest in their doctrine. And those who hold that he knows others, as chosen by Ibn Sina, claim that he knows things with a universal knowledge, not subject to time, unchanging with past, future or present. Yet they assert that not even the weight of an atom in the heavens or the earth escapes his knowledge, though he knows particulars in a universal mode. First, their doctrine must be understood, then objections may be raised. They say, the eclipse of the sun in the future, present and past is known to us through three distinct knowledges. They elucidate this with an example. The sun, for instance, becomes eclipsed after not being so, then becomes clear again, thus passing through three states, namely, the eclipse as non-existent yet awaited it will be, as existent it is, and as non-existent, but having been it was. Corresponding to these three states, we have three distinct knowledges. First, that the eclipse is non-existent but will be. Second, that it is. And third, that it was but is no longer. These three knowledges are diverse and successive, and their succession upon a single subject necessitates change in the knowing essence. For if, after the eclipse clears, one were to know that it is present now, it would be ignorance, not knowledge, and if, during its occurrence, one were to know it as non-existent, it would be ignorance. Thus, one of these knowledges cannot substitute for another. They claim that God does not know in this manner, for he does not change. They assert that God's state does not vary across these three conditions, for that would entail change, and if his state does not vary, it is inconceivable that he knows these three matters. For knowledge follows the known. If the known changes, the knowledge changes, and if the knowledge changes, the knower inevitably changes, and change in God is impossible. Yet they claim that he knows the eclipse and all its attributes and accidents through a knowledge that he possesses eternally, unchanging, as if he knows, for instance, that the sun exists and the moon exists, for they came into being through him via intermediaries they term separated intellects or angels. He knows that they move in cyclical motions, that their orbits intersect at 2 points called the head and the tail, and that they conjoin at times at these nodes, causing the sun to be eclipsed. That is, the body of the moon interposes between the sun and the eyes of the beholders, veiling the sun from sight. He knows that if it passes a node by a certain measure, such as a year, it will be eclipsed again, and that the eclipse may cover all, a third or half of it, lasting an hour or two, and so forth for all states and accidents of the eclipse. Nothing escapes his knowledge, but his knowledge of this before the eclipse, during it, and after its clearance remains uniform, unchanging, and does not induce alteration in his essence. Thus all events are unveiled to him in a single harmonious unveiling, unaffected by time. Similarly, his knowledge of all events is such, for they occur through causes, and those causes have other causes, tracing back to the cyclical celestial motion, whose cause is the soul of the heavens, and the cause of the soul's motion is its yearning to resemble God and the near angels. All is known to him, unveiled in a unified, proportionate manner, untouched by time. Yet, during the state of the eclipse, it is not said that he knows it is present now, nor after its clearance, that it has cleared now. Anything requiring reference to time, in its definition, cannot be conceived as known by him, for it would entail change. This applies to what is divided by time. Thus, he knows the essences, but not their accidents. Likewise, in their doctrine regarding what is divided by matter and place, such as individual humans and animals, they say, he does not know the accidents of Zaid, Ammar, or Khalid, but knows the absolute human through universal knowledge. He knows its accidents and properties, that its body must be composed of organs, some for grasping, some for walking, some for perception, some paired, some singular, that its faculties must be distributed in its parts, and so on for every attribute within and without the human, all its concomitants, attributes, and necessities, such that nothing escapes his knowledge, but he knows it universally. As for accidents, they are distinguished only by the senses. The individual Zaid is distinguished from Ammar only by sensation, not by intellect, for the basis of distinction lies in pointing to a specific direction, and the intellect grasps only the absolute universal direction and place. As for saying this or that, It is a reference to a relation of the sensed object to the perceiver in terms of proximity, distance, or specific direction. And this is impossible in his case. We say, by this they uproot religions. This is a principle they have adopted, by which they have entirely uprooted the sacred laws. Its implication is that if Zaid, for instance, obeys God or disobeys him, God would not know the new states that arise in him, for he does not know Zaid as an individual, since he is a particular and his actions are temporal, arising after non-existence. If he does not know the individual, he does not know his states or actions. Indeed, he does not know Zaid's disbelief or Islam, but only the disbelief or Islam of humanity in an absolute universal sense, not specific to individuals. It follows that it must be said, Muhammad, peace and blessings be upon him, challenged with prophethood. Yet God did not know at that moment that he challenged with it. So it is with every specific prophet. He knows only that among humans are those who challenge with prophethood and that their attributes are such and such, but the specific prophet as an individual is not known to him, for that is known by sensation, and the states arising from him are not known, for they are states divided by the division of time from a specific individual, and perceiving them in their diversity would entail change. This is what we intended to mention. First, the exposition of their doctrine. Second, its clarification. Third, the abhorrent consequences that follow from it. Let us now address their confusion and the invalidity of their position. They say, whoever knows through diverse successive knowledges changes. Their confusion lies in the fact that these are three distinct states, and diverse states, succeeding upon a single subject, inevitably induce change in it. If, during the state of the eclipse, one knows it as it will be, as one knew before, one is ignorant, not knowing. If one knows it as present, having previously known it as not present but future, then one's knowledge has changed and one's state has changed, thus necessitating change, for change means nothing but the alteration of the knower. For whoever did not know something then came to know it has changed, or did not have knowledge that it is present, then attained that state during its existence has changed. They elaborate this in terms of relation, asserting that there are three states. One is pure relation, as in being to the right or left, which does not pertain to an intrinsic attribute, but is merely a relation. If what was on your right moves to your left, your relation changes, but your essence does not change at all. This is a change of relation upon the essence, not a change of the essence itself. Of this kind is if you are capable of moving bodies present before you, and those bodies cease to exist, or some of them do, your innate power and capacity do not change. For the capacity is a capacity to move bodies in general, then specific bodies insofar as they are bodies. The relation of capacity to a specific body is not an intrinsic attribute, but a pure relation. So its absence entails the removal of a relation, not a change in the state of the capable. The third is a change in essence, as in not being knowing then becoming knowing, or not being capable then becoming capable. This is change. The change in the known necessitates a change in the knowledge of the knower, and this is relation. The change in the known necessitates a change in knowledge, for the essence of knowledge inherently involves relation to the specific known. The essence of specific knowledge is its connection to that specific known as it is. Its connection to it in another manner is necessarily another knowledge. Thus its succession entails a change in the state of the knower. It cannot be said that the essence has a single knowledge that becomes knowledge of existence after being knowledge of future existence, then becomes knowledge of past existence after being knowledge of present existence, for the knowledge is one, uniform in states, and only the relation upon it has changed. For relation in knowledge is the essence of knowledge itself, so its change necessitates a change in the essence of knowledge, thus entailing change, which is impossible for God. Even with the change of what is akin to pure relation, there are objections from two perspectives. The first is to say, by what do you deny those who claim that God has a single knowledge of the existence of the eclipse, for instance, at a specific time, and that knowledge before its existence is knowledge that it will be? During its existence is knowledge of its being, and after its clearance is knowledge of its passing, and that these differences pertain to relations that do not necessitate a change in the essence of knowledge, thus not necessitating a change in the essence of the knower, akin to pure relation. For a single person may be to your right, then before you, then to your left, and the relations succeed upon you, while the changing entity is that moving person, not you. So it should be understood in the case of God's knowledge. We concede that he knows things with a single knowledge in eternity and perpetuity, and his state does not change, and their aim is to negate change, which is agreed upon. On the possibility that God could create for us such a knowledge, they say, from the necessity of affirming knowledge of existence now and of passing thereafter, change follows. But this is not conceded. From where did they know this? Rather, if God were to create for us a knowledge of Zaid's arrival tomorrow at sunrise, and sustain this knowledge without creating another knowledge or negligence of this knowledge, we would, at sunrise, know by that prior knowledge alone of his arrival now, and afterward that he arrived previously, and that single, enduring knowledge would suffice to encompass these three states. They object, saying, the relation to the specific known is intrinsic to its essence, and whenever the relation differs, the thing to which the relation is intrinsic differs, and whenever difference and succession occur, change occurs. You say that God does not know the absolute human, etc. We say, if this is correct, follow the path of your brethren among the philosophers who said that he knows only himself, and that his knowledge of his essence is his essence itself. For if he knows the absolute human, the absolute animal, and the absolute inanimate, and these are diverse, the relations to them inevitably differ. Thus, a single knowledge cannot suffice to be knowledge of diverse things, for the related is diverse, the relation is diverse, and the relation to the known is intrinsic to knowledge, thus necessitating multiplicity and difference, not mere multiplicity with uniformity. For uniform things can substitute for one another, but knowledge of the animal does not substitute for knowledge of the inanimate, nor does knowledge of whiteness substitute for knowledge of blackness, for they are different. How much more so in this matter? Moreover, these types, genera, and universal accidents are infinite and diverse. How can diverse knowledges be encompassed under a single knowledge, and that knowledge be the essence of the knower without addition to it? Would that I knew how a rational person escapes from himself, deeming impossible the unity in knowledge of a single thing divided in its states into past, future, and present, while not deeming impossible the unity in knowledge related to all diverse genera and types. The difference and distance between diverse genera and types is greater than the difference between the states of a single thing divided by time. If the latter does not necessitate multiplicity and difference, how does this necessitate multiplicity and difference? If it is established by proof that the difference of times is less than the difference of genera and types, and that the latter does not necessitate multiplicity and difference, then this too does not necessitate difference. If it does not necessitate difference, it is possible to encompass all with a single eternal knowledge in perpetuity, without entailing change in the essence of the knower. Do you not reflect? The second objection is to say, what prevents, on your premise, that he knows these particular matters, even if he changes? Why do you not believe that this type of change is not impossible for him, as Jam of the Mutazila held that his knowledges of temporal events are temporal, and as the Karamiya and others held that he is the locus of temporal events? The majority of the people of truth objected to them only on the grounds that the changing cannot be free of change, and what cannot be free of change and temporality is temporal, not eternal. As for you, your doctrine is that the world is eternal and not free of change. They say the knowledge would be temporal, either from his side or from another's, and it is impossible in both cases. If it be said, we deem this impossible because temporal knowledge in his essence cannot be free from being either temporal from his side or from another's, and it is invalid that it be temporal from him, for we have shown that the eternal does not produce the temporal, nor does it become an agent after not being an agent, for that entails change, as we have established in the issue of the temporality of the world. If it arises in his essence from another, how could another affect and change him, altering his states by compulsion and necessity from another? We respond, you should not reject the first case. We submit each of these two cases is not impossible on your premise. As for your saying that it is impossible for the temporal to emanate from the eternal, we have refuted this in that issue. How, when according to you it is impossible for the temporal to emanate from the eternal as the first of temporals? The condition of its impossibility is its being first. Otherwise these temporals do not have temporal causes ad infinitum, but culminate through cyclical motion to something eternal, which is the soul of the sphere and its life. The celestial soul is eternal, and cyclical motion arises from it, and each part of the motion arises and passes, and what follows is renewed inevitably. Thus, temporals emanate from the eternal according to you, but since the states of the eternal are uniform, the emanation of temporals from it is uniform in perpetuity, as the states of motion are uniform, since it emanates from an eternal with uniform states. It is thus evident that each party among them admits that it is possible for the temporal to emanate from the eternal if it emanates in proportion and perpetuity. Let temporal knowledges be of this kind, nor is the second case impossible, not due to the necessity of change. As for the second case, which is the emanation of this knowledge in him from another, we say, why is this impossible according to you? It involves only three matters. First, change, and we have shown its necessity on your premise. Second, the other being the cause of change in the other, which is not impossible according to you. Let the occurrence of a thing be the cause of the occurrence of knowledge of it, just as you say that the representation of a coloured person before the seeing pupil is the cause of the imprint of the person's form in the crystalline layer of the pupil through the transparent medium of air between the pupil and the seen. If it is possible for an inanimate object to be the cause of the imprint of an image in the pupil, which is the meaning of sight, why is it impossible for the occurrence of temporals to be the cause of the first's knowledge of them? For just as the faculty of sight is prepared for perception, and the presence of the coloured person with the removal of barriers is the cause of perception, let the essence of the first principle, according to you, be prepared to receive knowledge and move from potentiality to actuality by the occurrence of that temporal event. If this entails change in the eternal, the changing eternal is not impossible according to you. If you claim that this is impossible for the necessary being, you have no proof for affirming the necessary being except cutting the chain of causes and effects, as previously mentioned. We have shown that cutting the chain is possible with a changing eternal, nor is it due to compulsion of the eternal. The third matter entailed in this is the eternal being changed by another, resembling compulsion and the dominance of another over him. It is said, why is this impossible according to you? It is that he is the cause of the occurrence of temporals through intermediaries. Then the occurrence of temporals is the cause of his gaining knowledge of them, as if he is the cause of attaining knowledge for himself. But through intermediaries, you say that what emanates from God does so by necessity and nature, and you're saying that this resembles compulsion. Let it be so, for it befits your premise, since you claim that what emanates from God does so by necessity and nature, and he has no power to refrain from acting. This also resembles a kind of their saying, his perfection lies in being the source of all. If it be said, this is not compulsion, for his perfection lies in being the source of all things. We respond, and in knowing all this is not compulsion, for his perfection lies in knowing all things. If we were to attain knowledge concomitant with every temporal event, it would be a perfection for us, not a deficiency or compulsion. Let it be so in his case. A question on their incapacity to establish proof that the heaven is a living being obedient to God. Through its cyclical motion, they say they have claimed that the heaven is a living being possessing a soul whose relation to the body of the heaven is like the relation of our souls to our bodies. Just as our bodies move by will toward their purposes through the motion of the soul, so do the heavens, and the purpose of the heavens through their inherent motion is the worship of the sustainer of the worlds in a manner we shall mention. Its possibility is not denied. Their doctrine on this matter is not one whose possibility is denied, nor is its impossibility claimed, for God is capable of creating life in every body. Neither the vastness of the body prevents it from being alive, nor its roundness, for a specific shape is not a condition for life, since animals, despite the diversity of their shapes, share in the capacity for life. However, it is not known by the proof of reason. We claim their incapacity to know this through the proof of reason, and that if this is true, it is known only to the prophets through inspiration or revelation from God, and rational analogy does not point to it. Indeed, it is not far-fetched that such a thing might be known through proof if proof exists and supports it. But we say that what they have presented as proof suffices only to engender conjecture, not certainty. The error in their claim that the heaven is moving. Their confusion lies in their saying, the heaven is moving, and this is a sensory premise. Every moving body has a mover, and this is a rational premise, for if a body moved by virtue of being a body, every body would be moving. Every moving thing is either compelled, natural, or voluntary. Every mover is either emanating from the essence of the moved, as nature in the downward motion of a stone, or will in the motion of an animal with power. Or the mover is external, moving by compulsion, as in pushing a stone upward. Everything that moves by a meaning within its essence is either unaware of that motion, which we call nature, as in the downward motion of a stone, or aware of it, which we call voluntary and psychic. Thus motion, through these exhaustive divisions, oscillating between negation and affirmation, is either compelled natural, or voluntary. If two categories are invalidated, the third is confirmed. It cannot be compelled, for the compelling mover is either another body moving by will or by compulsion, inevitably culminating in will. If a mover by will is affirmed in the bodies of the heavens, the purpose is achieved, so what benefit is there in positing compelled motions when ultimately one must return to will? Alternatively, it may be said that it moves by compulsion, with God as the direct mover without intermediary, which is impossible. For if it moved by him, insofar as it is a body and he is its creator, it would follow that every body moves. Thus, the motion must be distinguished by a specific attribute by which it differs from other bodies, and that attribute is the proximate mover, either by will or nature. It cannot be said that God moves it by will, for his will relates to bodies in a uniform manner, so why is this body specifically prepared to be willed to move and not others? It cannot be arbitrary, for that is impossible, as previously mentioned in the issue of the temporality of the world. If it is established that this body must have an attribute that is the origin of motion, the first category, which is positing compelled motion, is invalidated. Nor can it be natural, for it returns to the place it flees from. Thus it remains to be said, it is natural which is not possible, for nature alone is never the cause of motion. For the meaning of motion is fleeing from one place and seeking another. If the place where the body is suits it, it does not move from it. For this reason, a skin filled with air does not move on the surface of water, but if submerged, it moves to the surface, for it finds the suitable place and rests, though nature persists. But if transferred to an unsuitable place, it flees from it to the suitable, as it flees from the midst of water to the realm of air. Cyclical motion cannot be conceived as natural, for every position from which it flees, it returns to. What is fled from by nature cannot be sought by nature. Thus, a skin of air does not return to the depth of water, nor does a stone after settling on the earth return to the air. Only the third category remains, which is voluntary motion, the objection. In the realm of discourse, three possibilities emerge as objections, and we resolve to consider a third of these possibilities, for your doctrine lacks conclusive proof to invalidate them. The first possibility is that the motion of the heavens might be compelled by a force exerted by another entity, a being that wills this motion and perpetually directs it. Yet this mover is neither a sphere nor a circumference, it is not the heaven itself. Thus, their claim that the motion of the heavens is volitional, and that the heavens are akin to a living being, falls apart. What we propose here is plausible, and their rebuttal is naught but a mere dismissal born of incredulity. Alternatively, it may be by the will of God. The second possibility posits that this motion is coerced, its origin lying in the divine will of God. We argue thus, the downward motion of a stone is likewise coerced, brought into being by God's creation of motion within it. So, too, is the case with all motions of bodies that are not animate. As for their objection to the notion of divine will, we have already refuted it. Their skepticism that this will does not uniquely pertain to the heavens while other bodies share in corporeality remains, yet we have clarified that the eternal will inherently distinguishes one thing from its like. They are compelled to affirm an attribute capable of specifying the direction of circular motion, the position of the pole, and the precise point. We shall not reiterate this, but in brief, their dismissal of a body being uniquely tied to divine will without a distinguishing trait recoils upon them. For we ask, why is the body of the heaven distinguished by that attribute which sets it apart from other bodies? All bodies are corporeal, so why does this attribute manifest in it and not in others? If they attribute this to yet another attribute, the question persists regarding that attribute, leading to an infinite regress. Ultimately, they must resort to asserting the arbitrariness of divine will, acknowledging that, among first principles, there exists that which distinguishes one thing from its peers and endows it with a unique attribute. Or it may be by nature, without consciousness, neither seeking a place nor fleeing from it. The third possibility concedes that the heavens are distinguished by an attribute, the source of motion, as they believe in the case of a stone's inclination downward. Yet it remains unconscious of this, much like the stone. Their assertion that what is sought by nature cannot simultaneously be fled from by nature is mere obfuscation, for, in their view, there are no numerically distinct places. Rather, the body is one, and the circular motion is one. The body has no actual parts, nor does the motion except as imagined. Thus, this motion is neither for the pursuit of a place nor for escape from it. It is conceivable that a body be created with an inherent quality necessitating circular motion, where the motion itself is the requirement of that quality, not that the quality demands the seeking of a place followed by motion to attain it. The motion is the very requirement, not a means to a place. Their claim that every motion is for seeking a place or fleeing from it, if deemed necessary, implies that seeking a place is the requirement of nature, and motion is merely a means to it, not intended for itself. We, however, contend it is not far-fetched that motion itself be the requirement, not for the sake of a place. What then renders this impossible? In summation, it becomes clear that what they have proposed, even if deemed more probable than other possibilities, cannot be affirmed with absolute certainty to exclude alternatives. Thus, to judge the heavens as a living being is pure conjecture, devoid of foundation. A question on refuting their claim. Regarding the purpose driving the heavens. They assert that the heavens draw near to God, proclaiming that the heavens obey God through their motion, seeking closeness to him. For every motion by volition must have a purpose, as it is inconceivable for an action or motion to emanate from a living being unless that action is preferable to inaction. If action and inaction were equal, action would not occur. In terms of perfection, drawing near to God does not mean seeking his pleasure or fearing his wrath, for God is exalted above wrath and pleasure. If such terms are used, they are metaphorical, signifying the intent of punishment or reward. Nor can drawing near imply spatial proximity, for that is impossible. Thus, it can only mean seeking nearness in attributes, for the most perfect existence is his existence. Every other existence in relation to his is deficient, and deficiency varies in degrees. The angel is nearer to him in attribute, not in place, and this is what is meant by the angels brought near, the intellectual essences that neither change, perish, nor transform, and know things as they truly are. Likewise, the more a human approximates the attributes of an angel, the closer they draw to God. The pinnacle of human potential lies in resembling the angels. The perfection of the angels brought near does not increase. Once it is established that drawing near to God means seeking nearness in attributes, for a human this entails knowing the realities of things and persisting in the most perfect state possible. For enduring in ultimate perfection is akin to God himself. The angels brought near possess all possible perfection in their existence. Nothing in them is potential awaiting actualization. Their perfection, relative to all save God, is at its utmost limit. As for the celestial angels, their perfection increases through the motion of the heavens, whereby they emulate God. These celestial angels are the souls that drive the heavens. Within them there is potentiality. Their perfections are divided into what is actual, such as the spherical form and configuration, which is present, and what is potential, such as configuration in position and location. No specific position is actualized except as a possibility, and they cannot possess all positions simultaneously, for that is impossible. Since they cannot exhaust all individual positions perpetually, they aim to encompass them by kind. They ceaselessly seek one position after another, one location after another, without end to this possibility, and thus their motions never cease. Their intent is to emulate the first principle in attaining the utmost perfection possible for them, and this is the essence of the obedience of the celestial angels to God. Through this, they exhaust every possible position, and goodness overflows from them. Their emulation manifests in two ways. First, by encompassing every possible position by kind, which is their primary intent. Second, by the consequences of their motion, variations in relations such as trines, quadratures, conjunctions and oppositions, and the differing ascensions relative to the earth. From this, goodness overflows to what lies beneath the lunar sphere, giving rise to all these events. This is the path to the perfection of the celestial soul. Every rational soul yearns for self-perfection by its very nature. The objection to this lies in the premises of their discourse, some of which are disputable, though we shall not prolong this discussion. We return to the purpose they have lastly emphasized and refute it from two angles. First, seeking perfection by existing in every possible location may be folly, not obedience. It is akin to a person with no occupation, whose desires and needs are fully met, yet who wanders aimlessly in a town or house, claiming to draw near to God by existing in every possible place. They assert that existing in places is possible for them, yet they cannot encompass them numerically, so they exhaust them by kind, claiming this to be perfection and nearness. Such a notion is ridiculed as folly, for moving from one space to another, from one place to another, is not a perfection to be valued or aspired to. There is no difference between what they propose and this absurdity. Why does the motion not differ? The second objection is that we say, what you have described as the purpose is achieved by westward motion. So why is the primary motion eastward? Why are not all motions in one direction? If there is a purpose in their divergence, why do they not differ inversely, with the eastward being westward and the westward being eastward? For all they have mentioned regarding the occurrence of events through the divergence of motions, trines, sextiles and the like, could occur in the opposite manner. Likewise, what they mention of exhausting positions and locations, how is it when motion to the opposite direction is possible? Why do they not move now from one side, now from the other, to exhaust all possibilities if encompassing every possibility constitutes perfection? These matters are perceived through inspiration, not deduction, revealing that these are mere fancies without substance. The secrets of the heavenly dominion are not unveiled through such imaginings. Rather, God discloses them to his prophets and saints through inspiration, not through rational deduction. Hence, philosophers, from first to last, have failed to explain the reason for the direction of motion and its selection. Perfection through motion and the emanation of goodness. Some have said, since their perfection is attained through motion from any direction, and since the order of earthly events necessitates the divergence of motions and the determination of directions, the motive for motion itself is nearness to God, while the motive for its direction is the emanation of goodness upon the lower world. We counter, this is invalid for two reasons. First, if this notion is conceivable, let it be posited that the requirement of their nature is stillness to avoid motion and change, for this is true emulation of God, who is sanctified above change, as motion implies alteration. Yet they chose motion to emanate goodness, benefiting others without burdening or tiring themselves. What prevents this supposition? Second, events are founded upon the varying relations arising from the divergence of motion directions. Let the primary motion be westward and the rest eastward, and divergence would still occur, yielding varied relations. Why then is one specific direction determined? These divergences require only the principle of difference, not a particular direction over its opposite for this purpose. a question on refuting their claim that the souls of the heavens are aware of all particulars occurring in this world. They claim that the souls of the heavens are aware of all particulars occurring in this world, that the preserved tablet refers to the souls of the heavens, and that the inscription of the world's particulars in them resembles the retention of memories in the retentive faculty lodged in the human brain. It is not a solid, broad body inscribed upon, for if the inscribed has no end, the surface inscribed upon would have no end. An infinite body is inconceivable, nor can infinite lines be inscribed on a body, nor can infinite entities be defined by finite lines. Their doctrine. They have asserted that the celestial angels are the souls of the heavens, and the proximate spherical angels are the detached intellects, essences subsisting in themselves, neither localized nor acting upon bodies. These particular forms overflow onto the celestial souls from them. They are nobler than the celestial angels, for they are bestowers, while the latter are recipients, and the bestower is nobler than the recipient. Hence the nobler is termed the pen, as God says, "He taught by the pen," Quran 96:4. For it is akin to an engraver or teacher, while the recipient is likened to a tablet. This is impossible, so we demand proof. We demand proof for this, as the dispute here differs from the previous one. What they previously mentioned is not impossible, for it culminates in the heavens being a living entity moving for a purpose which is conceivable. However, this matter reduces to ascribing knowledge of infinite particulars to a created being, which some may deem impossible. Thus, we demand evidence, for it is mere assertion. Their argument: volitional motion through particular will. They argue that it is established that circular motion is volitional, and volition follows the object of will. The object, if general, is pursued only by a general will, and a general will produces nothing, for every actual existent is specific and particular. A general will bears an equal relation to all particular instances, thus producing no specific thing. Rather, a particular will is necessary for a specific motion. Hence, it perceives particulars through particular perception. For every specific motion of the sphere from one point to another, there must be a particular will for that motion. Thus, it must have a conception of those particular motions through a corporeal faculty, for particulars are perceived only through corporeal faculties. Every will necessarily entails a conception of the desired object, that is, knowledge of it, whether particular or general. Consequently, it perceives its consequences. Whenever the sphere conceives the particulars of motions and encompasses them, it inevitably encompasses what follows from them. Variations in relations with the earth, such as some parts rising, others setting, some being at the zenith for some people and beneath the feet of others. Likewise, it knows the consequences of varying relations renewed by motion, such as trines, sextiles, oppositions, conjunctions, and other celestial events, whether directly through a single intermediary or through multiple intermediaries. In some, every event has a cause which itself is caused, until the chain ascends to the eternal celestial motion, where some motions are causes for others. Thus, causes and effects in their sequence terminate at the particular celestial motions. One who conceives the motions conceives their consequences and the consequences of those consequences to the end of the chain. Thus, it perceives all that will occur. By this, it becomes aware of what will occur. For every future event is necessarily consequent upon its cause, once the cause is realized. We do not know what will happen in the future, because we do not know all its causes. If we knew all causes, we would know their effects. For instance, if we know that fire will meet cotton at a specific time, we know the cotton will burn. If we know a person will eat, we know they will be satiated. If we know a person will pass a certain spot where a treasure is hidden beneath something light, and stepping on it reveals the treasure, we know they will become wealthy, but we do not know these causes, or we may know some, leading to intuition about the effect. If we know most, a strong conjecture arises. If we knew all causes, we would know all effects. However, the celestial beings are numerous, and their intermingling with earthly events is beyond human capacity to grasp. The souls of the heavens, however, are aware of them due to their knowledge of the primary cause and its consequences down to the end of the chain. Their claim: the sleeper sees what will be in the future by connecting to the preserved tablet. They claim that a sleeper sees what will be in the future during sleep by connecting to the preserved tablet, that is, the soul of the sphere. Hence, they assert that upon beholding something, it may remain in memory as it is, or the imaginative faculty may hasten to mimic it, for it is in its nature to represent things with analogous examples or transition to their opposites. Thus, the true perception may fade from memory, leaving only the imagined representation, necessitating interpretation. For instance, the imagination may represent a man as a tree, a wife as a shoe, a servant as a household utensil, or a keeper of wealth and charity as sesame oil, for the seed is the cause of the lamp, which is the cause of light. The science of dream interpretation branches from this root. This connection is accessible, for there is no barrier. But in wakefulness, we are preoccupied with sensory inputs and desires. In sleep, when sensory preoccupation diminishes, a readiness for connection emerges. The prophet sees in wakefulness. They claim that the prophet is aware of the unseen through this path as well. However, the prophetic soul's strength is such that sensory inputs do not overwhelm it. Thus, he sees in wakefulness what others see in sleep. The imaginative faculty may represent what he saw, and sometimes the thing remains in his memory as it is, while at other times only its representation remains, necessitating interpretation, just as dreams require interpretation. Were all existence not fixed in the preserved tablet, neither prophets in wakefulness nor others in sleep would know the unseen. But the pen has dried with what shall be until the day of resurrection, and this is the meaning we have conveyed. Our response: you have no evidence from the prophet. Our reply is: how do you deny one who says the prophet knows the unseen by God's direct disclosure, and likewise one who sees in sleep knows by God's disclosure or through an angel? There is no need for what you have described. You have no evidence for this, nor do you have evidence from the Sharia regarding the tablet and the pen, for the people of Sharia do not understand the tablet and the pen in this sense. There is no reliance on Sharia to support this. Reliance remains on rational paths. Even if what you mentioned is deemed possible without necessitating the denial of finitude to this knowledge, its existence is not known, nor is its reality affirmed. The path to it lies through Sharia, not reason. We dispute 3 of the premises. As for the rational evidence you presented, it rests on numerous premises we do not prolong in refuting. However, we dispute 3 of them. The first is your claim that the motion of the heavens is volitional, a matter we have already addressed and refuted. The second, even if conceded for argument's sake, is your claim that it requires particular conception of particular motions, which we do not accept. For in your view there is no part in the body. It is one divisible only in imagination, nor in the motion, for it is continuous and one. Thus its yearning to exhaust possible locations suffices, as they have stated, and a general conception suffices. We concede this regarding one directed to a place. Let us illustrate general and particular will with an example to clarify their intent. If a person has a general intent to perform Hajj to the house of God, this general will does not produce motion, for motion occurs particularly in a specific direction by a specific measure. Rather, as the person proceeds toward the house, particular conceptions of the place to traverse and the path to take continually arise, followed by a particular will for motion from the connected place. This is what they mean by particular will following particular conception, and it is conceded, for directions to Mecca are multiple, and the distance is not fixed, necessitating particular will to specify one place over another and one direction over another. Not in the case of the sphere. As for celestial motion, it has only one direction, for the sphere moves upon itself within its space, not beyond it. The motion is willed, and there is but one direction, one body, and one aim. It is like a stone's inclination downward, seeking the earth by the shortest path, which is a straight line. The straight line is determined, and it does not require a new cause beyond the general nature seeking the centre, despite varying proximity, distance, arrival at a point, and departure from it. Likewise, a general will for motion suffices for that motion without needing more. This premise is an arbitrary assertion. We refute knowledge of the consequences of motion. The third premise, an exceedingly arbitrary claim, is their assertion that if particular motions are conceived, their consequences and derivatives are also conceived. This is sheer delusion, akin to saying that if a person moves and knows their motion, they must know what follows from it, alignment surpassing, their relation to bodies above, below, and around them. If they walk in the sun, they must know the places where their shadow falls and where it does not, the cooling effect of the shadow by blocking rays in those places, the compression of earth particles under their feet, the dispersal therein, the internal transformations in their body due to motion leading to heat, the transformation of parts into sweat and so forth, encompassing all events in their body and beyond, for which motion is a cause, condition, or preparation. This is a delusion no rational mind entertains, and only the ignorant are deceived by it. To this does their assertion revert. The particulars caused by the soul of the sphere may not be only those existing. Now, moreover, we say, are these detailed particulars known to the soul of the sphere limited to what exists now, or do they include what is expected in the future? If you limit them to the present, their awareness of the unseen collapses, as does the awareness of prophets in wakefulness and others in sleep of what will be in the future through this medium, and the evidence's implication fails. For it is arbitrary to claim that knowing something entails knowing its consequences and derivatives, such that if we knew all causes of things, we would know all future events. The causes of all events are present now, for they are the celestial motion, yet they necessitate the effect either directly or through multiple intermediaries, not in the future to infinity. If it extends to the future without end, how can detailed particulars in the future to infinity be known? How can infinite detailed knowledges gather in a created soul at once without succession? Whoever does not perceive the impossibility of this with their reason should despair of their intellect. The soul of the sphere is more akin to the human soul. If they turn this back on us regarding God's knowledge of particulars is not like the knowledge of created beings. Rather, as the sphere's soul revolves like the human soul, it belongs to the category of the human soul, for it shares in perceiving particulars through a medium. If it does not fully align with it, it is most likely of its kind. If not predominantly so, it remains possible, and possibility refutes their claim of certainty. Their claim. The human soul perceives all things if not preoccupied. If it is said, the essence of the human soul is to perceive all things, but its preoccupation with the outcomes of desire, anger, greed, envy, hunger, pain, and bodily conditions, and with what the senses convey, prevents it. When the human soul focuses on one thing, it is distracted from others. As for the celestial souls, they are free from these traits. No distraction or pain overtakes them, so they know all things. Our response. Perhaps the soul of the sphere is preoccupied. We reply, how do you know it has no distraction? Could not its worship and yearning for the first overwhelm and distract it from conceiving detailed particulars? What prevents positing another obstacle besides anger and desire, beyond these sensed hindrances? From where do you know that obstacles are limited to what we observe in ourselves? Among rational beings, there are distractions from lofty aspirations and the pursuit of leadership, unimaginable to children who do not consider them hindrances. How, then, do you know the impossibility of something equivalent in celestial souls? This is what we wish to mention regarding the sciences they term divine. As for what they call natural sciences, they are numerous, and we mention their divisions to clarify that Sharia neither disputes nor denies them, except in places we have noted. They are divided into principles and branches. The principles are 8. 1. The first discusses what pertains to a body qua body, division, motion, change, and what accompanies motion such as time, place, and void. This is covered in the book, on hearing and being. 2. The second examines the states of the world's elements, the heavens, and what lies within the concave of the lunar sphere of the four elements, their natures, and the cause of each occupying a specific place. This is covered in the book on the heavens and the world. 3. The third studies the states of generation and corruption, procreation, growth, decay, transformations, and how species persist despite individual corruption through the two celestial motions, eastward and westward. This is covered in the book on generation and corruption. 4. The fourth addresses conditions affecting the four elements through mixtures from which arise upper phenomena like clouds, rain, thunder, lightning, halos, rainbows, thunderbolts, winds and earthquakes. 5. The fifth concerns mineral essences. 6. The sixth deals with the laws of plants. 7. The seventh pertains to animals, covered in the book on the natures of animals. 8. The eighth focuses on the animal soul and perceptive faculties, asserting that the human soul does not die with the body, for it is a spiritual essence incapable of annihilation, and its branches are 7. As for its branches, they are sevenfold. The first is medicine, whose aim is to comprehend the principles of the human body, its conditions of health and illness, their causes and signs, so that disease may be repelled and well-being preserved. The second is the science of the stars, which is a speculative endeavour to deduce from the configurations and conjunctions of celestial bodies what may transpire in the affairs of the world, of kings, of births, and of years. The third is the art of physiognomy, which is the inference of character from outward form. The fourth is the interpretation of dreams, which is the deduction from the imaginal visions of slumber regarding what the soul has glimpsed of the unseen realm, as the imaginative faculty represents it through symbolic likenesses. The fifth is the science of talismans, which is the harmonization of celestial forces with the powers of certain terrestrial bodies, so that a force emerges therefrom, effecting strange phenomena in the earthly realm. The sixth is the art of enchantments, which is the blending of the powers of earthly substances to produce extraordinary occurrences. The seventh is the science of alchemy, whose purpose is to transform the properties of mineral substances through a kind of artifice, thereby attaining gold and silver. We do not oppose them in matters of sacred law in any of these, nor is it necessary to contradict them in terms of divine ordinance in any of these sciences. Rather, our disagreement with them amidst the totality of these sciences pertains to 4 specific issues. We differ with them on 4 matters. The first is their assertion that the observed conjunction in existence between causes and effects is a necessary and inevitable linkage, such that it is neither within power nor possibility to produce a cause without its effect, nor an effect without its cause. The second is their claim that human souls are self-subsisting essences, not imprinted upon the body, and that the meaning of death is merely the severance of their connection to the body through the cessation of governance, while the soul remains self-existent in all states. They claim this is known through rational demonstration. The third is their contention that these souls cannot cease to exist. Once they come into being, they are eternal and everlasting, and their annihilation is inconceivable. The fourth is their assertion that it is impossible for these souls to return to their bodies. As for the first issue, it pertains solely to the affirmation of miracles, for the dispute over it is foundational to establishing miraculous phenomena that transcend the ordinary, such as the transformation of a staff into a serpent, the revival of the dead, and the splitting of the moon. Those who hold that the customary course of events is necessarily binding deem all such occurrences impossible. They allegorize what is mentioned in the Quran regarding the revival of the dead, claiming it refers to the removal of the death of ignorance through the life of knowledge. They interpret the staff, swallowing the magic of the sorcerers, as the nullification of the doubts of the deniers by the manifest divine proof brought by Moses. As for the splitting of the moon, they may deny its occurrence altogether, claiming it lacks widespread transmission. Their saying is that miracles occur only within the imaginative faculty. The philosophers have not affirmed miracles that break the customary order except in 3 matters: The first is in the imaginative faculty, for they claim that when it becomes dominant and powerful, unencumbered by the senses or preoccupation, it gazes upon the preserved tablet and imprints within itself the images of particular future events. This occurs in wakefulness for the prophets and in sleep for others. The second is a distinctive quality of the intellectual faculty of contemplation, which relates to the power of intuition, that is, the swift transition from one known thing to another. There are sharp minds that, upon mention of a conclusion, intuit the premise, and upon mention of a premise, intuit the conclusion of their own accord. In essence, when the middle term occurs to them, they grasp the conclusion, and when the two terms of the conclusion are present in their mind, the middle term uniting the two extremes comes to them spontaneously. People differ in this regard. Some comprehend on their own, others with the slightest prompting, and yet others fail to grasp even with much prompting and effort. If it is conceivable that the extreme of deficiency reaches one who lacks any intuition, unable to comprehend rational matters even with guidance, then it is equally conceivable that the extreme of strength and abundance reaches one who grasps all or most rational truths in the shortest and nearest of times. This is especially true of a prophet, and such capacity varies in quantity, whether in all matters or some, and in quality, differing in speed and proximity. Thus, there may be a sanctified, pure soul whose intuition persists in all rational matters at the swiftest of paces. Such is the prophet who possesses a miracle of contemplative power, needing no instruction in rational truths, as if he learns from within himself. He is described as one whose oil would well-nigh glow forth, though no fire touched it, light upon light. Quran 24:35. The third is the practical psychic faculty, which may reach such a degree that it influences natural forces and subjugates them. An example of this is that when a soul among us imagines something, the limbs and faculties within it serve that imagination, moving toward the desired direction. If one imagines something of pleasant taste, the mouth waters and the salivary force surges forth from its sources. If one imagines intimacy, the corresponding force arises and activates the organ. Even if one walks on a plank stretched across a void, with its ends resting on two walls, and strongly imagines falling, the body reacts to that imagination and falls. Yet if the same plank were on the ground, one would walk upon it without falling. This is because bodies and physical forces are created to serve and be subjugated to souls, and this varies according to the purity and strength of those souls. This influence may extend even beyond the body. It is not far-fetched that the power of a soul might reach such a degree that natural forces beyond its body serve it. For the soul is not imprinted solely in its body. Rather, it has a kind of inclination and yearning to govern it, a disposition inherent in its nature. If it is possible for the body's limbs to obey it, it is not impossible for other entities to do so as well. Thus, a soul may yearn for a wind to blow, rain to fall, lightning to strike, or the earth to quake and swallow a people. Such events depend on the occurrence of coldness, heat, or motion in the air. The soul may generate such heat or coldness within itself, thereby bringing about these phenomena without the presence of an apparent natural cause. This becomes a miracle for the prophet, though it occurs only in an atmosphere predisposed to accept it. It does not extend to turning wood into an animal or splitting the moon, which is not receptive to fracture. We say, we do not deny this, but we affirm other miracles which they exclude. This, then, is their doctrine concerning miracles. We do not reject what they have stated, acknowledging that such capacities may indeed belong to the prophets. However, we oppose their restriction to these alone and their denial of transformations, such as a staff becoming a serpent, the revival of the dead, and the like. Thus, it becomes necessary to delve into this matter to affirm miracles, and for another purpose, which is to uphold what Muslims unanimously agree upon, that God is capable of all things. Let us therefore proceed to the intended discourse. The issue of conjunction between what is customarily deemed a cause and what is deemed an effect is not necessary. At our stance, The conjunction between what is customarily considered a cause and its effect is not inevitable. Rather, for any two things where one is not the other, nor the other the first, and where the affirmation of one does not entail the affirmation of the other, nor its negation the negation of the other, there is no necessity for the existence of one to entail the existence of the other, nor for the absence of one to entail the absence of the other. Examples include thirst and drinking, satiety and eating, burning and contact with fire, light and the rising of the sun, death and the severing of the neck, healing and the taking of medicine, purgation of the stomach, and the use of a laxative and so forth, across all observed conjunctions in medicine, astronomy, crafts, and trades. Their conjunction is due to what has proceeded of God's decree, creating them in tandem, not because it is inherently necessary and incapable of separation. Rather, it is within the realm of possibility to create satiety without eating, to create death without severing the neck, to sustain life despite the severing of the neck, and so on for all such conjunctions. The philosophers, however, deny the possibility of this and claim its impossibility. For instance, in the case of fire and cotton, and the examination of such matters beyond enumeration would be lengthy, so let us specify a single example, the burning of cotton upon contact with fire. We deem it possible for contact to occur between them without burning, and we deem it possible for cotton to turn to ash without contact with fire, while they deny the possibility of this. The opponent's claim is that the agent of burning is fire alone, and it acts by nature. The discussion of this issue has three stages. The first stage is that the opponent claims the agent of burning is fire alone, acting by nature and not by choice. Our response is that we deny this. Rather, we say the agent of burning, by creating blackness in the cotton, separating its parts and rendering it charred or ash, is God, either through the mediation of angels or without mediation. As for fire, which is an inanimate object, it has no agency. This occurs in its presence, not by its doing. What evidence is there that it is the agent? Their only proof is the observation of burning occurring upon contact with fire. Yet observation indicates occurrence in its presence, not by its doing, nor that there is no other cause. For there is no dispute that the infusion of spirit and the perceptive and motive faculties into the sperm of animals does not arise from the natural elements confined to heat, cold, moisture and dryness. Nor is the father the agent of his child by depositing the sperm in the womb, nor is he the agent of its life, sight, hearing or other attributes within it. It is evident that these exist in his presence, but we do not say they exist by his doing. Rather, their existence is from the first cause, either without mediation or through the mediation of angels entrusted with these emergent affairs. This is a point on which the philosophers who affirm the Creator agree, and our discourse is with them. Thus, it is clear that existence in the presence of something does not indicate that it exists by its doing. If a blind person suddenly gains sight and sees colours, he does not know that the light of the sun is the cause of their impression in his vision. We clarify this with an example. If a blind person had a veil over his eyes and had never heard from people the difference between night and day, and if that veil were removed during the day and he opened his eyelids and saw colours, he would assume that the perception of coloured forms in his eyes is caused by the opening of his sight. He would think that as long as his vision is sound and open, the barrier lifted, and the object before him coloured, he must inevitably see, unable to conceive of not seeing. Only when the sun sets and the air darkens does he realize that the light of the sun is the cause of the impression of colours in his vision. So, how can the opponent be certain that there are not, in the principles of existence, causes and reasons from which events emanate upon the occurrence of contact, except that these are fixed, neither ceasing nor being bodies in motion that might disappear? If they were to cease or vanish, we would perceive the difference and understand that there is a cause beyond what we have observed. There is no escape from this according to their own principles, and the giver of forms. For this reason, their discerning scholars have agreed that these accidents and events which occur upon contact between bodies, or in general upon the variation of their relations, emanate from the giver of forms, who is an angel or angels. They even said that the impression of the form of colours in the eye occurs from the giver of forms, and that the rising of the sun, a sound pupil, and a coloured body are merely preparations and facilitators for the locus to receive this form. They extended this principle to every emergent event, thereby invalidating the claim of those who assert that fire is the agent of burning, bread the agent of satiety, or medicine the agent of health, and so on among causes. Their saying is that events emanate from the principles by necessity and nature, but the readiness to receive forms is achieved by these apparent causes. The second stage is with those who concede that these events emanate from the principles of events, but that the readiness to receive forms is achieved by these observable present causes. However, they maintain that these principles also issue things by necessity and nature, not by deliberation or choice, akin to the emission of light from the sun. The loci differ in their reception due to the variation in their readiness. For instance, a polished body accepts the sun's rays and reflects them, illuminating another place, while mud does not accept them, air does not impede the passage of its light, and stone obstructs it. Some things soften under the sun, others harden, some whiten like the fuller's cloth, and others blacken like a face. The principle is one, yet the effects differ due to the variation in the readiness of the loci. Similarly, the principles of existence are effusive with what issues from them. There is no withholding or stinginess on their part, and any deficiency lies with the recipients. Thus, it is impossible for Abraham not to have been burned. If this is so, then whenever we posit fire in its characteristic state, and two identical pieces of cotton encountering it in the same manner, how can it be conceived that one burns while the other does not, when there is no choice involved? On this basis they denied the occurrence of Abraham being cast into the fire without burning, while the fire remained fire. They claimed this is impossible unless the heat is removed from the fire, which would strip it of being fire, or unless Abraham's essence and body are transformed into stone, or something unaffected by fire, which is also impossible. Our response is that God acts by will. The answer has two approaches. The first is that we say we do not concede, that the principles do not act by choice, nor that God does not act by will. We have already refuted their claim in this regard in the discussion of the temporality of the world. If it is established that the agent creates burning by his will upon the contact of cotton with fire, it is rationally possible that he may not create it despite the contact. Their objection, "Do I not see before me ferocious beasts?" If it is said, this leads to the acceptance of grotesque impossibilities, for if you deny the necessary linkage of effects to causes and attribute it to the will of their creator, and if that will has no specific determined course but can vary and diversify, then it becomes possible for any of us to have before us savage beasts, blazing fires, towering mountains, and enemies armed with weapons, yet not see them, because God does not create the perception of them for us. If I place a book in my house, might I not know whether it has turned into a youth? And for one who leaves a book in his house, might it not be possible that upon returning it has become a fair, intelligent, active youth, or transformed into an animal? Or if one leaves a youth in his house, might it not turn into a dog? Or if one leaves ashes, might they not become musk? Or a stone turn into gold, or gold into stone? If asked about any of this, should one not say, "I do not know what is in the house now. All I know is that I left a book there, and perhaps it is now a horse that has soiled my library with its urine and dung. I left a jar of water in the house, and perhaps it has become an apple tree, for God is capable of all things." It is not necessary for a horse to be created from sperm, nor for a tree to be created from a seed. It is not even necessary that anything be created at all. Perhaps he has created things that had no prior existence. If one looks at a person he has never seen before and is asked, "Is this a born human?" should he not hesitate and say, "It is possible that some fruit in the market has turned into a human, and this is that human, for God is capable of all possible things, and this is possible, so one must hesitate over it." This is a field that expands in its imagining. Our response to this degree is that God creates for us knowledge that these possibilities have not occurred. The answer is that if it is established that what is possible in its essence does not necessitate the creation of knowledge for a person of its non-occurrence, then these impossibilities would follow. We do not doubt these scenarios you have presented, for God has created for us knowledge that these possibilities have not been enacted. We do not claim that these matters are necessary, rather they are possible, capable of occurring or not occurring. The persistence of custom in them time after time embeds in our minds their adherence to past custom in a manner inseparable from it. Knowledge of the occurrence of the possible is granted to the prophet, not to the common person. Rather, it is possible that a prophet among the prophets may know, through the means you have mentioned, that so-and-so will not return from his journey tomorrow, though his return is possible, yet he knows the non-occurrence of that possibility. Just as one looks at a common person and knows he does not know the unseen in any matter, nor grasps rational truths without learning, yet does not deny that his soul and intuition may strengthen to perceive what the prophets perceive as they have admitted its possibility. But they know that this has not occurred. If God breaks the customary order by enacting them at a time of breaking customs, these knowledges slip from hearts, and he does not create them. Thus, there is no impediment to something being possible within God's capacities, yet it may be decreed in his prior knowledge that he will not enact it despite its possibility at certain times, and he creates for us knowledge that he will not enact it at that time. There is nothing in this discourse but mere vilification. God alters the attribute of fire or the attribute of Abraham. The second approach, which frees us from these vilifications, is that we concede that fire is created with a nature such that if two identical pieces of cotton encounter it, it burns them both without distinction, if they are identical in every respect. Yet, with this we deem it possible for a prophet to be cast into fire and not burn, either by altering the attribute of the fire or the attribute of the prophet. God or the angels may create in the fire a quality that confines its heat to its own body, preventing it from extending beyond. So it retains its heat and remains in the form and reality of fire, but its heat and effect do not transcend. Alternatively, a quality may be created in the person's body without altering its nature as flesh and bone, repelling the effect of the fire. One who coats himself with talc is unaffected by fire, for we see someone who coats himself with talc and sits in a blazing oven without being affected by it. One who has not witnessed this denies it. Thus, the opponent's denial of the capacity of divine power to establish a quality in fire or in the body that prevents burning is akin to the denial of one who has not seen talc and its effect. Within God's capacities lie marvels and wonders. We say that God alters things at a time quicker than what is customary, and likewise the revival of the dead and the transformation of a staff into a serpent are possible through this means. For matter is receptive to all things. Earth and other elements transform into plants. Plants transform into blood upon being consumed by an animal. Blood transforms into semen, and semen, when poured into the womb, forms into an animal. This, by custom, occurs over an extended period. The opponent does not deem it impossible that it lies within God's power to cycle matter through these stages at a quicker time than is customary. If it is possible at a quicker time, there is no fixed limit to the shortest duration, so these forces hasten in their action, resulting in what constitutes a prophet's miracle. Objection: does this issue from the soul of the prophet or from another principle? If it is said, this issues from the soul of the prophet or from another principle among the principles at the prophet's request. Our response: it is from God for the affirmation of prophethood. We say, what you have conceded regarding the possibility of rain falling, lightning striking, and the earth quaking by the power of the prophet's soul occurs from it or from another principle. Our stance on this is as your stance on that, and it is more fitting for us and for you to attribute it to God, either without mediation or through the mediation of angels. However, the time of its deserving occurrence is when the prophet's resolve turns toward it, and the system of good is determined in its manifestation for the perpetuation of the divine law's order. Thus, it becomes a preponderant factor for existence, the thing being possible in itself, and the principle being generous and bountiful, yet it does not emanate from it, unless the need for its existence preponderates, and the good becomes determined in it. The good does not become determined in it unless a prophet needs it to affirm his prophethood for the outpouring of good. This is fitting to the course of their discourse and binding upon them. All of this is fitting to the course of their discourse and binding upon them whenever they open the door of distinction for the prophet with a characteristic contrary to the custom of people. For the measures of that distinction are not confined by reason to its possibility. So it is not obligatory to disbelieve what has been widely transmitted and what the divine law has come to affirm. The reception of forms varies due to the difference in readiness. In general, since only sperm can accept the form of an animal, and the vital forces emanate upon it from the angels who, in their view, are the principles of existence. And since from human sperm only a human is formed, and from the sperm of a horse only a horse, because its origin from a horse preponderates the suitability of the horse's form over other forms, accepting only the preponderant form through this means, therefore barley seed never produces wheat, nor does a pear seed produce an apple. Then we see genera of animals generated from earth without procreation, such as worms, and others that are both generated and procreate, such as mice, snakes, and scorpions. Their generation from earth varies in their readiness to accept forms due to factors hidden from us, beyond the capacity of human power to apprehend. For in their view, forms do not emanate from the angels by desire or randomly, rather only that which is determined for a locus to accept by virtue of its inherent readiness emanates upon it. Readiness varies, and their principles in their view are the conjunctions of the stars and the variations in the relations of the celestial bodies in their motions. The principles of readiness contain marvels and wonders. From this, it becomes evident that the principles of readiness contain marvels and wonders to the extent that the masters of talismans, through the science of the properties of mineral substances and the science of the stars, have harmonized celestial forces with mineral properties. They have fashioned forms from these earthly substances and sought for them specific ascendants among the celestial configurations, thereby producing strange effects in the world. They may repel snakes and scorpions from a land, or pests from another, among other matters known from the science of talismans. Why, then, does this not occur in the shortest time, becoming a miracle? If the principles of readiness transcend confinement, and we do not grasp their essence nor have a means to encompass them, how can we know the impossibility of readiness occurring in some bodies for transformation through stages in the shortest time, such that it becomes ready to accept a form it was not previously prepared for, resulting in a miracle? Denial of this is merely due to narrowness of scope, familiarity with lofty existence, and heedlessness of God's secrets in creation and nature. One who contemplates the marvels of the sciences does not deem far-fetched any of the miracles of the prophets narrated under any circumstance. Objection. If you define the impossible in this way, if it is said, "We agree with you that every possible thing is within God's power, and you agree that every impossible thing is not within his power. Among things there are those whose impossibility is known, those whose possibility is known, and those regarding which the intellect pauses, neither judging them impossible nor possible." So, what is the limit of the impossible according to you? If it reverts to the conjunction of affirmation and negation in a single thing, then say that for any two things where one is not the other, nor the other the first, the existence of one does not necessitate the existence of the other, so God is capable of creating the impossible. Say that God can create a will without knowledge of the willed, create knowledge without life, move the hand of a dead person, make him sit, write volumes with his hand, and engage in crafts while his eyes are open and gazing toward it. Yet he sees nothing, has no life, and no power over it. These organized actions are created by God along with the movement of his hand, the movement being from God. By allowing this, the distinction between voluntary movement and trembling is nullified, So a precise action does not indicate the knowledge or power of the agent, and regarding the transformation of genera, it should be possible for him to transform genera, turning a substance into an accident, knowledge into power, blackness into whiteness, sound into scent, just as he can turn an inanimate object into an animal or a stone into gold. This would entail countless impossibilities. Our response? No. The answer is that the impossible is not within power, and the impossible is the affirmation of a thing with its negation, or the affirmation of the specific with the negation of the general, or the affirmation of two with the negation of one. What does not revert to this is not impossible, and what is not impossible is within power. The impossible is to combine blackness and whiteness, or for a person to be in two places. As for combining blackness and whiteness, it is impossible because we do not understand from the affirmation of the form of blackness in a locus the negation of the disposition of whiteness. If the negation of whiteness becomes understood from the affirmation of blackness, then affirming whiteness alongside its negation is impossible. Similarly, it is not possible for a person to be in two places because we understand from his being in a house his not being elsewhere. Thus, it is impossible to posit him elsewhere while he is in the house, which implies his negation from elsewhere. Likewise, we understand from will a desire for something known. If a desire is posited without knowledge, it is not will, for it contains the negation of what we understood. An inanimate object cannot have knowledge created within it, for we understand from inanimate that which does not perceive. If perception is created within it, calling it inanimate in the sense we understood is impossible. If it does not perceive, calling the emergent thing knowledge, while its locus perceives nothing through it, is impossible. This is the aspect of its impossibility. God cannot transform genera due to the absence of a shared matter. As for the transformation of genera, some theologians have said it is within God's power. We say, the becoming of a thing into something else is unintelligible. If blackness turns into power, for instance, is the blackness remaining or not? If it is non-existent, it has not transformed but rather ceased, and something else has come into being. If it exists alongside power, it has not transformed but something else has been added to it. If blackness remains and power is non-existent, it has not transformed but remains as it is. When we say blood turns into semen, we mean that the very same matter has shed one form and donned another. So the result is that one form has ceased and another has emerged with a persistent matter upon which the two forms succeed. When we say water turns into air through heating, we mean that the matter receptive to the form of wateriness has shed this form and accepted another, so the matter is shared and the attribute changes. Similarly, when we say a staff turned into a serpent or earth into an animal, there is no shared matter between accident and substance, nor between blackness and power, nor between other genera, so this is impossible from this perspective. If God moves the hand of a dead person, he writes, as for God moving the hand of a dead person, and setting him up in the likeness of a living being who sits and writes, such that organized writing results from the movement of his hand. This is not impossible in itself, whenever we attribute events to the will of a chooser. Rather, it is deemed strange due to the persistence of custom contrary to it. However, the evidence lies in the knowledge of the agent. Your saying that this nullifies the indication of precise action on the knowledge of the agent is not so, for the agent now is God, and he is the precise one, acting by his doing. As for your saying that the distinction between trembling and voluntary movement ceases, we say, we have perceived this from ourselves, for we have witnessed within ourselves the distinction between the two states, so we express that difference as power. Thus we knew that what occurs from the two possible categories, one in a state and the other in another, is the creation of movement with power in one state and the creation of movement without power in another. When we observe others and see numerous organized movements, we gain knowledge of their power. These are knowledges that God creates through the customary courses by which the existence of one of the two possible categories is known, without indicating the impossibility of the other category, as previously mentioned. In the realm of profound inquiry, there lies a question that perplexes the minds of those who seek to establish, through the faculty of reason, the essence of the human soul as a spiritual substance, self-subsistent, unconfined by spatial bounds, neither a body nor imprinted within a body, neither conjoined to the corporeal frame nor detached from it. This is akin to the divine reality of God, who transcends being within or without the world, and so too the angels, according to their doctrine. To delve into this matter requires an exposition of their philosophy concerning the vital and human faculties, for the life forces, in their view, are divided into two noble categories: the motive and the perceptive. The perceptive faculties, in turn, branch into the manifest and the hidden. The manifest are the five senses, impressions embedded within corporeal forms, that is, these faculties themselves. As for the hidden, they are threefold: the imaginative, the estimative, and the reflective. The imaginative faculty resides in the forepart of the brain, behind the faculty of sight, wherein the forms of visible things linger even after the eyes are closed. It is the repository of all that the five senses convey, gathering them into a unified perception, and thus it is named the common sense. Were it not for this faculty, one who beholds white honey and perceives its sweetness only through taste would, upon seeing it again, fail to recognize its sweetness unless tasting it anew, as in the first instance. Yet within this faculty there exists a judgment that decrees this whiteness to be sweet, for there must be a discerning arbiter within, where colour and sweetness converge, pronouncing the presence of one by the presence of the other. Then there is the estimative faculty, which apprehends meanings, whereas the imaginative grasps forms. By forms I mean that which cannot exist without matter, that is, a body, and by meanings that which does not necessitate a body for its existence, though it may incidentally be associated with one, as in the case of enmity or affinity. For a sheep perceives the colour, shape and form of a wolf, attributes inseparable from a body, and also apprehends its enmity, its opposition. Likewise, a lamb discerns the shape and colour of its mother, then perceives her affinity and compatibility, fleeing from the wolf while hastening after its dam. Enmity and affinity do not inherently require embodiment, unlike colour or shape, though they may manifest within bodies. Thus, this faculty differs from the first, and its seat is in the posterior cavity of the brain. As for the third, it is the faculty termed imaginative in animals and reflective in humans. Its function is to compose perceptible forms with one another and to associate meanings with forms. Its abode lies in the middle cavity of the brain, between the repository of forms and the storehouse of meanings. Hence, a human may imagine a horse that flies, or a being with the head of a man and the body of a steed, among other compositions, though such has never been witnessed. Some opine that this faculty should be aligned with the motive forces rather than the perceptive, as shall be elaborated anon. Yet in knowing the seats of these faculties, we add to them the preservative faculty and the faculty of memory. They assert that the faculty in which the forms of the sensible are imprinted preserves those forms even after their initial reception. For a thing preserves another not by the same faculty whereby it receives. Water, for instance, receives but does not retain, while wax receives by its softness and retains by its hardness, unlike water. Thus, the preservative faculty, by this reckoning, differs from the receptive, and is so named. Similarly, meanings are imprinted in the estimative faculty and preserved by a faculty called memory. Hence the hidden perceptions, when joined by the reflective faculty, become five, mirroring the five manifest senses. The motive faculties, meanwhile, divide into those that incite and those that execute. The inciting are further split into the appetitive and the irascible. The inciting motive force is that which stirs to action, while the executing motive force directly effects movement. The inciting force, known as the desiderative or yearning force, operates such that when a desired or feared form is impressed upon the aforementioned imaginative faculty, it propels the executing motive force to act. It has two branches: the appetitive force, which urges movement toward imagined things deemed necessary or beneficial, seeking pleasure, and the irascible force, which incites movement to repel an imagined harm. As for the executing motive force, It is that which courses through nerves and muscles, contracting them to draw tendons and ligaments connected to limbs toward the seat of this force, or relaxing and extending them to direct the tendons and ligaments in the opposite direction. These and some other faculties of the animal soul outlined in their generality without delving into minutiae. As for the rational human soul, termed by them the speaking soul, for speech is the most manifest fruit of intellect, and thus it is named after it, it possesses two faculties, the practical and the theoretical. Each may be called intellect, though by a shared nomenclature. The practical is the principle that moves the human body toward ordered crafts and endeavours unique to humanity, derived through deliberation peculiar to man. The theoretical, also called the speculative, is that faculty whose nature is to apprehend the truths of abstract intelligibles, free from matter, place or direction, universal propositions which the theologians name sometimes states and other times existences, while the philosophers call them abstract universals. The practical faculty is tethered to the body, while the theoretical is drawn from the angelic realm. Thus, the soul possesses two faculties in relation to two dimensions, the theoretical aligned with the angelic sphere through which it receives true knowledge from the angels, and this faculty must ever be receptive from above, and the practical oriented downward toward the body, its governance ends, and the refinement of character. This latter faculty must dominate all bodily faculties, subduing them under its discipline so that it neither yields to nor is swayed by them, but rather they are swayed by it, lest the soul acquire base bodily traits termed vices. Instead, it should prevail, endowing the soul with noble traits called virtues. None of this is to be denied, for this is a summary of what they have expounded concerning the animal and human faculties, elaborating at length while omitting mention of the vegetative faculties, as they are irrelevant to our purpose. Nothing of what they have stated is to be rejected by the sacred law, for these are observable matters that God has ordained in the customary order of things. Our contention with them lies not in denying the possibility of such from the power of God, nor in asserting that the sacred law opposes it. Indeed, we may, in discussing the resurrection and gathering, affirm that the law corroborates it, but rather in disputing their claim that pure reason alone suffices to establish the soul as a self-subsistent substance, independent of sacred guidance. Let us then demand their proofs, for they profess to have many arguments in this regard. Their first argument is that the seat of knowledge is indivisible, and thus not a body. They assert that intellectual knowledge resides in the human soul, and as it is unified and contains indivisible units, its seat must likewise be indivisible. Since every body is divisible, it follows that its seat is something indivisible. This can be framed in logical terms as a conditional syllogism. If the seat of knowledge were a divisible body, then the residing knowledge would also be divisible. But the residing knowledge is indivisible, therefore the seat is not a body. The form of this syllogism is sound, as negating the consequent negates the antecedent by consensus, and the premises are not in dispute. The first premise, that every state in a divisible entity must divide with the division of its seat, is self-evident and beyond doubt. The second, that a single knowledge resides in man and is indivisible, holds, for if it were infinitely divisible, it would be absurd, and if finitely divisible, it would still contain indivisible units. Our objection, however, is twofold. First, why deny that the seat of knowledge could be an indivisible, localized substance, as held by some theologians? After this, mere incredulity remains. How could all knowledge reside in a single substance, while surrounding substances remain idle and adjacent? Yet such incredulity avails nothing, for it rebounds upon their own position. How can the soul be a singular entity, unlocalized, unpointable, neither within nor without the body, neither connected to nor detached from it? Resolving this question is lengthy, and we do not favour this path, for the discourse on the indivisible part is protracted, involving geometric arguments too extensive to detail here. Among these is their query: does a single substance between two others touch the same point on both sides or a different one? If the same, it is absurd, for it implies the two sides touch each other. If different, it implies multiplicity and division, a conundrum too lengthy to unravel, and we are spared delving into it. Let us turn to a second objection. The second objection is that what they claim, that every state in a body must divide, is false, as evidenced by the sheep's perception of the wolf's enmity. This perception is a unified reality, unimaginable as divisible, for enmity has no parts to be partially perceived or lost. Yet this perception occurs within a bodily faculty, according to them, for the souls of beasts are imprinted in bodies, and do not persist after death, as is agreed. If they can contrive division in perceptions of the five senses, the common sense or the preservative faculty of forms, they cannot do so for meanings that do not require matter. It may be countered that the sheep does not perceive abstract enmity, but the specific enmity of a particular wolf, tied to its form and figure. Yet the rational faculty apprehends truths abstracted from matter and individuality. We say the sheep perceives the wolf's colour and shape, then its enmity. If colour imprints in the visual faculty and divides with its seat, and so too shape, by what does it perceive enmity? If by a body, let it divide, and I wonder what would be the state of that perception if divided. Would part of it perceive part of the enmity? How can enmity have parts? Or would each part perceive the whole enmity, rendering it known repeatedly in each segment of the seat? This, then, is a perplexing doubt in their argument, demanding resolution. It may be said that the premises are beyond doubt, for if one cannot question that a single knowledge is indivisible, and that what is indivisible cannot reside in a divisible body, the conclusion cannot be doubted. Our response is that their statements contradict each other, and this work is composed to expose the incoherence and contradiction in the philosopher's discourse, for one of two things must falter: either their view on the rational soul, or their view on the estimative faculty. Furthermore, we say this contradiction unveils their oversight of a subtle equivocation in their syllogism. Perhaps the confusion lies in their claim that knowledge imprints in the body as colour does in a coloured object, dividing with the division of its seat. The flaw is in the term imprint, for it is possible that the relation of knowledge to its seat is not like that of colour to its object, spread over it, imprinted in it, and distributed across its parts, dividing with its division. Perhaps the relation of knowledge to its seat is of another kind, one that does not permit division upon the seat's division, akin to the relation of perceiving enmity to a body. The modes by which attributes relate to their seats are neither confined to a single type nor fully known to us in detail with certainty. To judge without grasping the nuances of this relation is to render a verdict unworthy of trust. In sum, we do not deny that what they propose strengthens conjecture and inclines the mind, but we deny that it constitutes certain knowledge, immune to error or doubt, and in this there lies uncertainty. Their second argument concerns the relation of knowledge to the knower. They say if knowledge of a single intellectual object, abstracted from matter, is imprinted in matter as accidents are in bodily substances, it must divide with the body's division, as previously stated. If it is not imprinted or spread over it, and they shy from the term imprint. Let us shift to another expression. Does knowledge bear a relation to the knower or not? It is absurd to sever this relation, for if severed, why is this one a knower of it rather than another? This relation must be one of three, either to the whole, to a part, or to none. All three are false. If there is a relation, it must be one of three, to every part of the seat, to some parts and not others, or to no part. It is false to say there is no relation to any part, for if the units have no relation, the whole cannot have one, since a composite of disparate parts remains disparate. It is false to say the relation is to some parts, for that which has no relation is irrelevant to the matter, and it is false to say each supposed part has a relation to the essence, for if the relation is to the entirety of knowledge, then what each part knows is not a fragment of the known as it is, and it would be understood infinitely in actuality. If each part has a distinct relation to the essence of knowledge, then the essence of knowledge is divided in meaning, though we have shown that knowledge of a single object is indivisible in every respect. If each part's relation is to a portion of the essence of knowledge distinct from another's, it resembles sensory perceptions imprinted in the five senses, which are merely representations of divisible particular forms. For perception means the presence of the perceived's likeness in the perceiver, and each part of the perceived's likeness relates to a part of the bodily organ. Our objection mirrors the preceding, for substituting imprint with relation does not dispel the doubt regarding what is imprinted in the sheep's estimative faculty concerning the wolf's enmity, as they describe. It is undoubtedly a perception with a relation to it, and the same implications you mentioned apply. Enmity is not a quantifiable entity to be imprinted as a measurable likeness in a measurable body, with its parts relating to its parts. The wolf's measurable shape does not suffice, for the sheep perceives something beyond shape, opposition, enmity, and adversity, and this addition lacks measure. Yet it is perceived by a measurable body. Thus, these forms cast doubt on this argument as on the first. It may be asked, why not object concerning the indivisible substance? If someone says, why not refute these arguments by asserting that knowledge resides in a localized, indivisible substance within the body? Our response is that this discussion is lengthy and fruitless, for discourse on the indivisible substance involves geometric considerations too protracted to resolve. Moreover, it does not dispel the difficulty, for it would imply that power and will also reside in that part. Since man acts and action is inconceivable without power and will, nor is will conceivable without knowledge. The power to write resides in the hand and fingers, but the knowledge of it is not in the hand, for it persists even if the hand is severed, nor is the will in the hand, for one may will it after the hand is paralyzed, failing not for lack of will, but for lack of power. Their third argument is that the human, not a mere part, is the knower. They say, if knowledge were in a part of the body, that part alone would be the knower, not the rest of the human, yet the human is called a knower, and knowing is a general attribute without specific localization. Our response is that this is mere fancy, for one is called a seer, hearer, and taster, and so too are beasts described. Yet this does not prove that perception of sensibles is not bodily. Rather, it is a form of metaphor, as when one says, so-and-so is in Baghdad, though he is only in part of it. Their fourth argument is that knowledge and ignorance may coexist in the same seat. They say, if knowledge resides in a part of the heart or brain, for instance, then ignorance, its opposite, should reside in another part of the heart or brain, rendering the human simultaneously knowing and ignorant of the same thing in a single state. Since this is absurd, it follows that the seat of ignorance is the seat of knowledge, and this seat is one where opposites cannot coexist. For if it were divisible, it would not be absurd for ignorance to reside in one part and knowledge in another, as a thing in one seat does not oppose its contrary in another, just as a horse may have patches of black and white, or an eye may have black and white in distinct places. Our response is that this does not apply to the senses, for their perceptions have no opposites. One may perceive or not, which is merely a contrast of existence and absence. Thus, we say, one perceives with some parts, like the eye or ear, and not with the rest of the body, without contradiction. Nor does it avail to say that knowing opposes ignorance and the judgment applies to the entire body, for it is absurd that a judgment reside where its cause does not. The knower is the seat where knowledge resides, and if the term is applied to the whole, it is by metaphor, as when one says, he is in Baghdad, though in part of it, or he is a seer, though we know by necessity that seeing pertains to the eye, not the leg or hand. The opposition of judgments mirrors the opposition of causes, for judgments are confined to the seats of their causes. Nor does it help to say that the seat prepared to receive knowledge and ignorance in man is one, and thus they oppose each other. For according to you, every living body is capable of knowledge and ignorance with no further condition beyond life, and all parts of the body are equal in receiving knowledge. Our objection further is that this rebounds upon you concerning desire and aversion, for these are established in beasts and humans as meanings imprinted in the body. Yet it is absurd that one should simultaneously desire and abhor the same thing, with desire in one seat and aversion in another. This does not prove they do not reside in bodies, for though these faculties are numerous and distributed across various organs, they are bound by a single entity, the soul, in both beasts and humans. When the binding entity is one, contradictory attributions to it become absurd, yet this does not prove the soul is not imprinted in the body, as in beasts. Their fifth argument is that without this the intellect would not comprehend itself. They say, if the intellect apprehends the intelligible through a bodily organ, it cannot comprehend itself, but this consequent is absurd, for it does comprehend itself. Therefore the antecedent is absurd. Our response is, what is the proof of this? We grant that negating the consequent negates the antecedent if the entailment is established, but we question the entailment itself and demand proof. It may be said, sight does not see itself, for since sight is bodily, it does not pertain to itself. Vision does not see vision, nor hearing hear hearing, and so with the other senses. If the intellect also apprehends only through a body, why does it apprehend itself? For each of us, as we apprehend others, apprehends ourselves and apprehends that we have apprehended others. Our response is, this is possible by a breach of custom. What you mention is flawed in two ways. First, in our view, sight may pertain to itself, being sight of others and of itself, just as a single knowledge is knowledge of others and of itself, though custom runs contrary, and breaching custom is, in our view, possible. Second, and stronger, is that though we grant this in the senses, why should what is impossible in some senses be impossible in others? What prevents the senses from differing in the mode of perception while sharing bodiliness, just as sight and touch differ? For touch perceives only by contact with the touched organ, as does taste, while sight requires separation. For if the eyelids close, one does not see the eyelids' colour due to proximity. This difference does not entail a difference in needing a body, so it is not far-fetched that among bodily senses there be one called intellect, differing from others in perceiving itself. Their sixth argument is that without this, the intellect would not apprehend the heart. They say, if the intellect apprehends through a bodily organ like sight, it would not apprehend its organ as with other senses, yet it apprehends the brain and heart, claimed to be its organ, proving it is neither organ nor seat, else it would not apprehend them. Our objection echoes the previous, for we say, it is not far-fetched that sight apprehend its seat, though custom opposes it. Or we say, why is it impossible for senses to differ in this regard while sharing imprinting in bodies as aforestated? Why do you claim that what resides in a body cannot apprehend the body that is its seat? It is not necessary to judge a universal from a specific, a fallacy recognized in logic, as when one says every animal moves its lower jaw when chewing, having observed all animals thus, unaware of the crocodile which moves its upper jaw. These philosophers observed only the five senses in a certain way and judged the whole accordingly. Perhaps the intellect is another sense, akin to the crocodile among animals. So senses, though bodily, divide into those that apprehend their seat and those that do not, just as they divide into those perceiving without contact, like sight, and those requiring contact, like taste and touch. Thus, what they mention, if it engenders conjecture, does not engender certain trustworthy knowledge. It may be said the intellect must either always apprehend the heart or never do so. If it is argued, we do not rely on mere induction of the senses, but on proof, saying that if the heart or brain were the human's essence, it would never escape apprehending them, as it never escapes apprehending itself, for no one is ever unaware of their essence, always affirming it within themselves, yet a person, unless informed of the heart and brain or witnessing them through dissection of another, neither apprehends nor believes in their existence. If the intellect resides in a body, it should always apprehend that body or never do so, and neither is true, for it apprehends sometimes and not others. Our response is that the human feels their body. We say as long as a person is aware of themselves and never unaware, they feel their body. True, they may not specify the name heart or its form, but they affirm themselves as a body, even affirming themselves in their clothes or home, though the soul they describe suits neither clothes nor home. They always affirm the body's essence, though not its form or name, just as they are unaware of the seat of smell, which is two protrusions in the forebrain akin to nipples. Yet everyone knows they perceive scent with their body, though the seat is neither shaped nor specified to them, save that it is nearer the head than the heel, and within the head nearer the nose's interior than the ears. So too a person feels themselves and knows their essence, by which they subsist, is nearer their heart and chest than their foot, for they can imagine persisting without a foot but not without a heart. Thus what they claim, that one sometimes forgets the body and sometimes does not, is incomplete. Their seventh argument is that instrumental faculties grow weary from persistent use. They say perceptive faculties tied to bodily organs grow weary from sustained use in continuous perception, for persistent motion disrupts the balance of bodies, tiring them. Likewise, intense and clear perceptions weaken them, sometimes corrupting them, so they cannot perceive subtler, fainter things afterward, as a loud sound impairs hearing or a bright light dims sight, potentially ruining it or preventing subsequent perception of faint sounds or subtle visibles. Even one who tastes intense sweetness may not sense lesser sweetness afterward. Yet with the intellectual faculty it is the reverse. Sustained contemplation of intelligibles does not tire it, and apprehending clear necessities strengthens it to grasp subtle theories, not weakening it. If weariness occasionally afflicts it, it is due to employing the imaginative faculty and relying on it, so the imaginative faculty's organ weakens, failing to serve the intellect. Our response is that senses differ among themselves as before, for we say, it is not far-fetched that bodily senses differ in these matters, so what holds for some need not hold for others. It is not unlikely that bodies vary, some weakened by certain motions, and others strengthened by certain motions without weakening, or that a cause renews their strength so they do not feel the effect. All this is possible, for a judgment established for some things need not apply to all. Eighth proof. The intellect does not succumb to old age. They have said, the faculties of the body, each and every one, wane in strength after reaching the zenith of vigour, which halts at the age of 40. Thereafter sight dims, hearing fades, and all other powers diminish. Yet the intellectual faculty in most cases grows stronger even as the years advance. Illness may hinder it, but this does not necessitate an inability to contemplate the abstract and rational when sickness afflicts the body or when senility creeps in with age. For whenever it becomes evident that the intellect gains strength, even as the body weakens in certain states, it is clear that its essence stands independent of the corporeal frame. Thus, its suspension when the body falters does not imply that it is inherently tied to the body. The exception does not negate the rule. We affirm, if the intellectual faculty were truly dependent on the body, its weakening would mirror the body's decline in every instance. Yet this consequent is untenable, and so the premise itself must be false. This matter bears a deeper significance, for the soul possesses an action inherent to its essence, when no obstacle impedes it and no distraction diverts it. The soul has two modes of action, one in relation to the body, which is its governance and management, and another in relation to its own principles and essence, which is the perception of rational truths. These two are in opposition, each vying with the other. When the soul is engrossed in one, it turns away from the other, finding it impossible to unite both endeavours. The distractions arising from the body are manifold: sensation, imagination, desires, anger, fear, sorrow, and pain. When one turns to ponder a rational concept, all these other faculties fall silent. Indeed, mere sensory perception may obstruct the intellect's contemplation without any affliction striking its instrument or essence. The root of this lies in the soul's preoccupation with one act over another. Thus the intellect's reflection is hindered by pain, illness, or fear, for such states may also manifest as disturbances in the brain. How, then, can one deny this mutual exclusion between the divergent directions of the soul's actions? Even within a single direction, multiplicity may breed opposition. Fear may eclipse pain, desire may overshadow anger, and contemplation of one rational concept may preclude another. When a patient recovers from illness, knowledge returns without the need for renewed learning. The proof that illness, which afflicts the body, does not encroach upon the seat of knowledge is this: upon regaining health, one does not require relearning what was once known. Our objection. There are myriad causes for the increase or decrease of faculties. We contend that the waning and waxing of powers have countless origins, not confined to a single rule. Some faculties may strengthen at the outset of life, others in its middle, and yet others in its twilight. The intellect, too, follows such a course. Thus, one can only speak of what predominates. Consider the sense of smell, which may grow keener after 40, while sight weakens. Though both are bodily states, they differ in their progression. Among animals, too, senses vary. Smell excels in some, hearing in others, and sight in yet others due to differences in their temperaments which cannot be precisely measured. It is not far-fetched, then, that the temperament of bodily instruments may differ among individuals and across circumstances. As for the intellect, one reason its decline lags behind that of sight may be that sight is active from the first moment of creation, while the intellect does not reach maturity until 15 years or more, as observed in the diversity of human development. It has even been said that greying touches the hair of the head before the beard, for the former is older. If one delves into such causes without anchoring them in the customary flow of nature, no certain knowledge can be built upon them, for the possibilities of variation in the increase or decrease of faculties are boundless, yielding no certitude. Ninth proof: though the body changes, the human remains the same with his knowledge. They have declared, how can a human be merely a body with its attributes when these bodies ceaselessly dissolve, and nourishment replaces what is lost? Consider a child emerging from the womb, who falls ill repeatedly, withers, then grows plump and matures. It may be said that by the age of 40 not a single particle remains of what existed at the moment of birth. Indeed, the child's initial existence stemmed solely from the components of semen, none of which endure, for all have dissolved and been replaced by others. Thus this body is not that body. Yet we proclaim this human is that very same human, retaining the knowledge acquired from early childhood, even as every part of his body has been transformed. This proves that the soul possesses an existence beyond the body, and that the body is merely its instrument. Our objection. This argument falters when applied to beasts or trees. When comparing their states in youth and old age, we still say this is that very same, as we do with humans, yet this does not indicate an existence beyond the body. As for the preservation of knowledge, the same applies to retained mental images. A child's imagined forms persist into old age, despite the transformation of all parts of the brain. If it is claimed that not all parts of the brain have changed, the same could be said of the heart, both being of the body. How then can one conceive that all parts change while the human retains something of his essence? Rather, we say, even if a person lives 100 years, some trace of the original seed must remain. It cannot wholly vanish. Thus he remains that same human by virtue of what persists, just as we say of a tree or a horse. This is that very same, despite extensive dissolution and renewal. Consider the analogy of water. If a pound of water is poured into a vessel, then another pound is added and mixed, and a pound is removed, and this process is repeated 1,000 times, we still judge that some of the original water remains. In each pound withdrawn, a trace of the first water endures, for it was present in the second, third, and subsequent mixtures, diminishing yet never vanishing. According to their own principles, which allow for infinite division of bodies, the infusion of nourishment and dissolution of bodily parts resemble the pouring and drawing of water from this vessel. 10th proof. The intellect perceives universal concepts. They have argued, the intellectual faculty apprehends universal rational concepts termed states by the theologians. It grasps the notion of human in the absolute sense upon observing a specific individual through the senses, though this absolute concept differs from the observed individual. The latter is bound by a specific place, colour, size, and posture, while the rational concept of human is stripped of these particulars, encompassing all who bear the name human, regardless of colour, size, posture, or place. Even potential future humans are included within it. Should humanity cease to exist, the essence of human would persist in the intellect devoid of these specific traits. Likewise, every sensory object perceived as particular yields in the intellect a universal essence, abstracted from material constraints and specific conditions. Its attributes are divided into the essential, such as corporeality for trees or animals, or animality for humans, and the accidental, such as whiteness or height for humans or trees. Judgments of essence and accident apply to the genus of humans or trees, not merely to the observed individual. This demonstrates that universal concepts, stripped of sensory associations, are rational and fixed in the intellect. Their abstraction from sensory particulars pertains to the disembodied soul. Such a universal concept, being rational, bears no reference, posture, or measure. Its abstraction from posture and matter must either relate to that from which it is derived, which is impossible, for the source is bound by posture, place, and measure, or to that which apprehends it, namely the rational soul. Thus, the soul itself must be free of posture, reference, or measure. Otherwise, what inheres in it would bear these traits. Our objection: what resides in the senses resides in the intellect, though delineated. We contest that the universal concept posited as a state in the intellect is not conceded. Nothing resides in the intellect save what resides in the senses, though in the senses it exists as a whole, unpassed, while the intellect can dissect it. In the intellect, its relation to all particulars is uniform. When delineated, the particular in the intellect, though separated from sensory associations, remains individual in essence, akin to that which is tied to such associations. Yet what is fixed in the intellect corresponds to the rational object and its like in a singular manner, and thus is termed universal in this sense. The intellect holds the image of a particular rational object, first perceived by the senses, and the relation of this image to all individuals of that genus is one and the same. If one sees another human, no new form arises in the intellect, unlike when one sees a horse after a human, which engenders two distinct forms. This phenomenon occurs even in mere sensation. Consider one who sees water. An image forms in the imagination. If blood is seen thereafter, a different image arises, but if another instance of water is observed, no new image forms. The initial impression of water serves as a model for all instances of water. One might thus assume it to be universal in this sense. Likewise, upon seeing a hand, its structure, palm extended, fingers divided, ending in nails, forms in both imagination and intellect alongside its size and colour. If another hand, identical in all respects, is seen, no new image arises. The second observation does not engender novelty in the imagination, just as seeing water after water in the same vessel and measure does not. Yet if a hand differing in colour or size is seen, a new colour or measure arises, but not a new image of hand. For a small black hand shares with a large white hand the arrangement of parts, differing only in colour and size. What is shared does not yield a new image, for the image remains the same. What differs engenders a new impression. This does not indicate the existence of a universal in the intellect devoid of posture entirely. The meaning of universal, in both intellect and sensation, is thus: if the intellect perceives the form of corporeality in an animal, it does not gain a new form of corporeality from a tree, just as the imagination does not form a new image of water upon seeing it twice. This applies to all similar entities and does not affirm a universal devoid of posture. Moreover, the intellect may judge the existence of something without reference or posture, such as the creator of the universe, yet whence comes the assertion that such cannot subsist in a body? In this regard, what is abstracted from matter is rational in itself, not merely in the intellect or the perceiver. As for what is derived from material things, its explanation is as we have stated. Issue concerning the refutation of their claim that human souls cannot cease to exist after coming into being and are eternal, incapable of annihilation. Their first proof: annihilation does not occur with the death of the body. They assert that the soul's annihilation must stem from one of three causes: the death of the body, an opposing force acting upon it, or the power of the omnipotent. It is erroneous to claim it perishes with the body's death, for the body is not its abode, but merely an instrument wielded by the soul through the faculties within the body. The corruption of the instrument does not necessitate the corruption of its wielder unless the latter is inherently embedded within it, as with animal souls or bodily faculties. Moreover, the soul acts independently without the instrument's participation as well as with it. Its actions with the instrument include imagination, sensation, desire, and anger, which perish with the body's demise. But its action by its essence, without the body's involvement, is the perception of rational concepts abstracted from matter. It requires no body to apprehend such concepts. Rather, preoccupation with the body hinders it from rational contemplation. Whenever it possesses an action and existence independent of the body, it does not rely on the body for its subsistence, nor by an opposing force. It is false to claim that it perishes by an opposing force, for substances have no opposites. Hence, nothing in the world perishes save accidents and successive forms upon things. The form of water, for instance, vanishes through its opposite, the form of air, while the matter that serves as its substratum never perishes. Any substance not residing in a substratum cannot be conceived to perish through an opposite, for what lacks a substratum has no opposite, nor by divine power. It is also erroneous to say it perishes by the power of the omnipotent, for non-existence is not a thing that can be enacted by power. This mirrors their argument concerning the eternity of the world, which we have already addressed and elaborated upon. Our objections: first objection, revisit what has preceded. We object on several grounds. First, the claim that the soul does not perish with the body's death, on the basis that it is not embedded in a body, rests on an earlier premise we do not concede. Second objection: the soul's emergence is tied to the body's emergence. Second, even by their view, the soul is not embedded in the body, but bears a relation to it, such that it does not come into being except with the body's emergence. This is the position chosen by Ibn Sina and the meticulous thinkers who refuted Plato's notion that the soul is eternal and merely becomes preoccupied with bodies through a rigorous demonstrative path. If souls pre-existed bodies as a single entity, how did they divide? That which lacks magnitude or measure cannot be conceived to split. If it is claimed they did not divide, this is untenable, for it is necessarily known that Zaid's soul differs from Amar's. Were they one, Zaid's knowledge would be Amar's, for knowledge is an attribute of the soul's essence, and attributes of essence accompany it in every relation. If souls were multiple prior to bodies, by what did they multiply? Not by matter, place, time, or attributes, for nothing in them necessitates differentiation of attributes. However, after the body's death, souls may multiply through differing attributes for those who affirm their persistence, as they acquire diverse dispositions from bodies. These dispositions arising from character never render two souls identical, just as outward forms never do, for were they identical, Zaid would be indistinguishable from Amar. The soul relates to a specific body through certain intermediaries. Whenever it is established by this proof that the soul emerges with the emergence of the seed in the womb and the readiness of its temperament to receive the governing soul, it accepts that soul not merely because it is a soul. For two seeds in one womb may be prepared simultaneously for twins to receive governance, and two souls emerge from the first principle, with or without intermediaries, such that the soul of one does not govern the body of the other. This specificity arises only from a particular relation between a specific soul and a specific body. Otherwise, neither body of the twins would be more suited to one soul than the other. If two souls emerge simultaneously with two prepared seeds, what specifies them? If this specificity is due to an imprint within the body, it perishes with the body's demise. If there is another basis for this relation between a specific soul and a specific body, such that this relation conditioned its emergence, what precludes it from conditioning its persistence? When the relation ceases, the soul perishes, and its existence returns only through God's recreation, exalted be He, by way of resurrection and renewal, as conveyed in divine revelation concerning the hereafter. It may be said that this relation is merely one of longing. If it is claimed that the relation between soul and body is but a natural inclination and innate longing created within the soul for this specific body, preoccupying it and preventing distraction by other bodies, such that it remains bound by this innate longing to that particular body, this does not necessitate its corruption with the body's corruption, even if it yearns by nature to govern it. Indeed, this longing may persist after separation from the body if, during life, it was engrossed in bodily affairs and neglected to subdue desires or pursue rational truths. Thus it suffers from this longing after losing the instrument to which it was inclined. Our third objection: annihilation by divine power. Third, it is not far-fetched to say it may perish by the power of God, exalted be He, as we have established in the discussion of the world's eternity. Our fourth objection: other possible means. Fourth, it may be asked, you have claimed that these three means of annihilation are exhaustive, and we concede this. Yet what proof is there that non-existence can only occur through one of these three means? If the division is not between affirmation and negation, it is not implausible that there may be a fourth or fifth means beyond those mentioned. Thus, restricting the means to these three lacks demonstrative certainty. Their second proof: every substance is incapable of annihilation. Their second argument, upon which they heavily rely, is that every substance not residing in a substratum is incapable of annihilation. Indeed, simple entities never perish. This proof first establishes that the body's death does not necessitate the soul's annihilation, as previously argued. What perishes contains the potential for corruption, while its bearer persists. It is then said, it is impossible for it to perish by any other cause, for whatever perishes by any means must possess the potential for corruption, namely, the possibility of non-existence prior to its annihilation, just as whatever comes into existence as an incident possesses the possibility of existence prior to its existence. This possibility of existence is termed potential for existence, and the possibility of non-existence is termed potential for corruption. Just as the possibility of existence is a relational attribute subsisting only in something to which it relates, so too is the possibility of non-existence. Hence, it is said that every incident requires a pre-existent matter in which the potential for the incident's existence resides, as discussed in the issue of the world's pre-eternity. The matter bearing the potential for existence is receptive to the incident existence, and the receiver differs from the received. Thus, the receiver exists alongside the received upon its occurrence, and is distinct from it. Similarly, the receiver of non-existence must exist at the moment of annihilation, such that something perishes from it, just as something came into being within it. What perishes differs from what remains, and what remains bears the potential for non-existence, its receptivity, and its possibility, just as what persists upon the occurrence of existence differs from what occurs and bore the potential to receive it. This is akin to matter, necessitating that what undergoes annihilation be composite, consisting of what perishes and what remains receptive to non-existence, bearing its potential prior to annihilation, with the bearer akin to matter and the perishing akin to form. Yet the soul is not composite. The soul is simple, a form abstracted from matter, devoid of composition. If composition of form and matter is posited within it, we shift the discourse to the matter that is its origin and root, for it must ultimately trace back to a fundamental essence. We attribute annihilation to that essence termed soul, just as we attribute annihilation to the matter of bodies, which is eternal and everlasting. Forms merely arise upon it and perish from it, for it bears the potential for the occurrence and annihilation of forms, being equally receptive to opposites. From this, it is evident that every existent whose essence is singular is incapable of annihilation. The potential for a thing's existence resides in something other than that thing. This can be elucidated thus. The potential for a thing's existence precedes its existence and belongs to something other than that thing, not being identical to the potential for existence itself. Yet the human soul inclines towards certain delights over others. Secondly, it is also true that man may prefer the pleasures of the intellect over those of the senses. For instance, one who triumphs over an adversary and revels in their defeat might forsake in pursuit of this victory the joys of intimacy and nourishment. Indeed, such a one might abandon food throughout the day, immersed in the thrill of mastering a game of chess or dice, despite the baseness of such a pursuit, and feel not the pangs of hunger. Likewise, he who yearns for honour and leadership may waver between compromising his dignity by fulfilling a carnal desire with a beloved, risking exposure and scandal, or preserving his honour by relinquishing that desire. He deems such restraint more delightful, safeguarding the sanctity of his reputation. Thus, without doubt, this intellectual pleasure surpasses the other in his estimation. Nay, even the valiant might charge into a throng of brave warriors, scorning the peril of death, driven by the imagined delight of posthumous praise and acclaim. Hence, the superiority belongs to the intellectual and otherworldly pleasures. Truly, the delights of the mind, oriented towards the hereafter, are loftier than the sensory pleasures of this worldly life. Were it not so, the messenger of God, peace and blessings be upon him, would not have declared, "I have prepared for my righteous servants that which no eye has seen, no ear has heard, and no human heart has ever conceived." And God the Exalted has said, "No soul knows what delights of the eye are kept hidden for them," as Sajda 32:17. This, then, is the essence of the need for knowledge. Certain sciences are beneficial, and among the most beneficial are the pure intellectual sciences, which encompass knowledge of God, his attributes, his angels, his scriptures, the manner in which things come into being from him, and all that lies beyond. If a science serves as a means to this end, it is deemed beneficial for that purpose. However, if it does not lead to such an end, such as grammar, linguistics, poetry, and the diverse branches of knowledge, it becomes akin to crafts and trades, like any other profession. The soul that persists in pursuing desires reaps harm, while the need for action and worship purifies the soul. For the soul, bound within this corporeal frame, is hindered from perceiving the true realities of things, not because it is inherently imprinted upon the body, but due to its preoccupation and inclination toward its lusts and yearnings for sensory gratifications. This inclination and longing form a disposition within the soul, one that becomes entrenched through persistent indulgence in desires and habitual attachment to tangible pleasures. Once this disposition takes root in the soul and the body perishes, these traits remain embedded within it, causing affliction in two profound ways. First, they obstruct the soul from its unique delight, which is communion with the angels and the beholding of divine, beautiful truths. In the absence of the distracting body, there is no barrier to shield the soul from the pain of this deprivation, as there was before death. Second, the soul retains its greed and attachment to the world, its causes, and its pleasures. Yet it has been stripped of the instrument, namely the body, through which it once attained those delights. Thus, its state becomes akin to one who loved a woman, cherished leadership, found solace in children, rejoiced in wealth, and delighted in honour, only to witness the death of their beloved, the loss of their position, the captivity of their children and kin, the seizure of their wealth by enemies, and the utter collapse of their dignity. Such a one endures an anguish beyond concealment. Even in this worldly life, hope of reclaiming such blessings lingers, for the world is ever in flux, coming and going. But what of the state when hope is severed? Surely the wiser course is to turn away from the world. The only salvation from being stained by these dispositions is to restrain the soul from its whims, to renounce the world, and to devote oneself wholly to knowledge and piety, severing all ties to worldly matters while still in this life, and forging a steadfast bond with the affairs of the hereafter. Thus, when death arrives, the soul is as one released from a prison, attaining all its aspirations. Such is its paradise. Yet the necessities of the body draw one toward them, and it is impossible to entirely erase these traits from the soul or obliterate them completely, for bodily needs are inherently compelling. However, it is possible to weaken such attachments. Hence God the Exalted has declared, "There is none among you but will approach it. This is upon your sustainer an inevitability decreed." Maryam 19:71. Yet, if this attachment is diminished, the sting of separation from the world lessens, and the soul's delight in beholding divine truths at the moment of death intensifies, mitigating the pain of parting from worldly ties. This is akin to one who is summoned from their homeland to a lofty position and exalted dominion. though their soul may ache at parting from kin and country, enduring a measure of sorrow, this pain is erased by the joy of embracing sovereignty and leadership. For this reason, the sacred law has prescribed moderation in character. If it were not for the impossibility of wholly stripping away these traits, the law would still advocate a middle path between two opposing extremes in matters of ethics. Like lukewarm water, neither hot nor cold, it stands distant from both qualities. Thus, one should neither hoard wealth excessively, allowing greed to dominate, nor squander it recklessly, becoming a prodigal. Nor should one abstain from all endeavours, becoming a coward, nor plunge headlong into every affair, becoming reckless. Rather, one must seek generosity, which is the middle path between stinginess and extravagance, and courage, which lies between cowardice and recklessness. So it is with all virtues. The science of ethics is vast, and the sacred law has elaborated it in great detail. There is no way to refine one's character except by adhering to the principles of the law in one's actions, so that a person does not follow their own desires, lest they take their whims as their deity. Instead, they must emulate the law, advancing or retreating at its behest, not by personal choice, thereby refining their character through its guidance. Thus, among humanity, some are wretched, while others are blessed, either fully or partially. Those who lack both virtue in character and knowledge are utterly lost. Hence, God, the Exalted, has said, "Successful indeed is the one who purifies it, and failed has the one who corrupts it." Ash-Shams 91:9-10. Whoever combines the virtues of knowledge and action is the knower and worshipper, the truly blessed in an absolute sense. Whoever possesses the virtue of knowledge without action is the learned transgressor, who suffers torment for a time, but not eternally. For their soul has been perfected by knowledge, though tarnished temporarily by bodily inclinations contrary to its essence. Since the causes of renewal cease, this tarnish fades over time. And whoever possesses the virtue of action without knowledge is saved from torment, but does not attain complete felicity. It has been claimed that whoever dies has experienced their resurrection. As for the imagery conveyed in the sacred law, its purpose is to present parables, given the limitations of human understanding in grasping these sublime delights. Examples comprehensible to them were provided, yet it was clarified that those delights transcend what was described. Such is their doctrine. Our response is that much of what they say holds truth, yet it is known only through the sacred law. We affirm that most of these matters do not contradict the law. We do not deny that in the hereafter there are forms of delight surpassing sensory pleasures, nor do we deny the soul's persistence after parting from the body. However, we have come to know this through the law, for it speaks of the return, and the concept of the return cannot be understood without the soul's endurance. What we refute is their claim to have arrived at this knowledge through reason alone. The sacred law teaches us the resurrection of bodies, but opposition to the law lies in denying the resurrection of bodies, the bodily pleasures in paradise, the bodily torments in hell, and the existence of paradise and hell as described in the Quran. What prevents the realization of a union between spiritual and bodily felicity, as well as spiritual and bodily misery? God's statement, "No soul knows what is kept hidden for them," as Sajda 32:17, implies that the entirety of these matters is beyond comprehension. Similarly, his declaration through the prophet, "I have prepared for my righteous servants that which no eye has seen," indicates the existence of such noble matters, but does not negate the presence of others. Indeed, the union of both forms of felicity is more perfect, and the promised reward is the most complete of matters. Since it is possible, it must be affirmed in accordance with the sacred law. It may be said that these descriptions are parables tailored to human comprehension, just as the verses employing similitudes and the reports concerning divine attributes are parables suited to human understanding, while the divine attributes remain sanctified beyond what the masses might imagine. Our response is that there is no room for allegorical interpretation here. The analogy between the two is arbitrary, for they differ in two respects. First, the expressions used in similitudes allow for metaphorical interpretation according to the customary usage of the Arabs in employing metaphor. However, the descriptions of paradise, hell, and the detailed states therein reach a level of explicitness that precludes allegory, leaving no option but to obscure the discourse through deception by suggesting the opposite of truth, which is neither due to impossibility nor necessity. Second, rational proofs demonstrate the impossibility of attributing place, direction, form, a physical hand or a physical eye to God, the exalted, as well as the notions of movement or rest. Thus, allegory is necessitated by rational evidence. In contrast, the promised matters of the hereafter are not impossible within God's power, so it is incumbent to adhere to the apparent meaning of the text, indeed to its explicit intent. They claim that certain matters are impossible, asserting that rational evidence proves the impossibility of resurrecting bodies, just as it proves the impossibility of attributing certain qualities to God, the exalted. We demand that they present this evidence. Their approaches to this issue are varied. Their first approach posits that the return to bodies and life falls into one of three categories. Either the human is defined as the body and the life inherent in it, an accident sustained by it, as some theologians have held, denying the existence of a soul as an independent entity managing the body. In this view, death means the cessation of life, the Creator's withholding of its creation, leading to its annihilation along with the body's dissolution. The return, then, would mean God's recreation of the annihilated body and the restoration of the annihilated life. Or it is said that the body's material remains as dust, and the return entails its reassembly into a human form, with life newly created within it. This is one category. Alternatively, it is posited that the soul exists and persists after death, but the original body is reassembled from its very parts. This forms another category. Or it is said that the soul returns to a body, whether composed of the original parts or others, and the returning entity is that same person by virtue of the soul's identity, with no regard for the material, since a human is not defined by their matter, but by their soul. These three categories, they claim, are invalid. The first is evidently false, for if life and body are annihilated, their recreation is merely the creation of a likeness, not the return of the very same entity. True return implies the persistence of something and the renewal of something else, as when it is said, so-and-so returned to benevolence, meaning the benefactor persists, ceased their benevolence, then resumed it, returning to a similar act, though numerically distinct, yet truly a return to its kind, not to its identical self. Or it is said, so-and-so returned to the town, meaning they existed outside it, having once been there, and returned to a similar state. If nothing persists and two similar entities are separated by time, the term return cannot apply unless one adopts the Mutazilite view that the non-existent is a fixed entity, with existence as a transient state that comes and goes, allowing the concept of return through the persistence of essence. Yet this negates absolute non-existence, which is pure negation and affirms a persistent essence awaiting the return of existence, a notion deemed impossible. Thus the individual does not return as themselves. Even if a proponent of this view argues that the body's dust does not perish and remains, to which life returns, we respond that it would then be proper to say, the dust became alive again after life ceased. But this does not constitute the return of the individual or the restoration of that specific person. For a human is not defined by their material or the dust within them, as their parts are replaced through nourishment, yet they remain the same person by virtue of their spirit or soul. If life or the spirit is annihilated, what is gone cannot rationally be said to return. Only a likeness can be newly created. If God creates human life in dust derived from the body of a tree, horse or plant, this is the initiation of a human, not a return. What is utterly non-existent cannot return. Only what exists can return to a prior state or its likeness. Thus, it is the dust that returns to the attribute of life, not the human, for a human is not defined by their body alone. The body of a horse may become sustenance for a human, transforming into a seed from which a human emerges. Yet one does not say the horse became a human. A horse is a horse by its form, not its matter. Once the form perishes, only matter remains. As for the second category, the return of the decayed body is impossible. Assuming the soul persists and returns to that very body, even if conceivable, it would constitute a return to managing the body after separation. Yet this is impossible, for the body of the deceased decomposes into dust, is consumed by worms and birds, transforms into blood, vapour and air, and merges with the world's air, vapour and water, in a manner that renders its re-extraction implausible, and the reassembly of the deceased's parts alone distasteful. Even if one relies on God's power to assume such reassembly, it must either involve only the parts present at death, meaning the resurrected would be maimed, missing a nose, ear, or limbs as they were at death, which is repugnant, especially for the people of paradise, or for those created deficient from the outset, whose return to their emaciated state at death would be the utmost torment. Or it must include all parts that existed throughout life, which is impossible for two reasons. First, if a human consumes another's flesh, as occurs in some lands during famines, it becomes impossible to resurrect both, as the same material was once the body of the consumed, and then, through nourishment, became the body of the consumer. Two souls cannot return to one body. Second, a single part would need to be resurrected as liver, heart, hand and foot simultaneously, for medical science establishes that organic parts nourish one another with excess sustenance, such that the liver feeds on parts of the heart, and so with other organs. If specific parts served as material for multiple organs, to which organ would they return? Moreover, the first impossibility does not require cannibalism. Observing the Earth's surface over time reveals that its soil comprises the decayed remains of the dead, turned to dust, cultivated, and transformed into grain and fruit, consumed by animals, becoming flesh, and then consumed by us, becoming our bodies. Thus, no material exists that has not been the body of countless humans, transformed into dust, then plants, then flesh, then living beings. A third impossibility arises. The souls separated from bodies are infinite, while bodies are finite entities, so the materials that once formed human bodies cannot suffice for all souls, falling short of their number. As for the third category, it too is impossible. The souls are finite, but returning the soul to a human body of any material or dust is untenable for two reasons. First, the materials subject to generation and corruption are confined within the sublunary sphere, incapable of increase, and are finite, while the souls separated from bodies are infinite, exceeding the capacity of available materials. Second, dust cannot accept the management of a soul while remaining dust. The elements must blend in a manner akin to the blending of a seed. Wood or iron cannot accept such management, nor can a human and their body be reconstituted from wood or iron. A human exists only when their body is divided into flesh, bone and humours. Whenever a body and its temperament are prepared to receive a soul, it merits the emergence of a soul from the principles that grant souls, leading to two souls converging on one body. The doctrine of reincarnation is not accepted, and by this the doctrine of reincarnation is invalidated, for it amounts to the soul, after liberation from one body, engaging in the management of another, different body. The reasoning that refutes reincarnation also refutes this approach. Our objection is that we favour the third category, and it does not contradict the sacred law. The objection is thus: why do you deny those who adopt the last category, holding that the soul persists after death as an independent essence? This does not oppose the law, rather the law affirms it, as in God's statement, "Do not think of those who are killed in the way of God as dead, rather they are alive with their sustainer." Al-Imran 3:169, and in the prophets saying, "Peace be upon him," that the spirits of the righteous are within the crops of green birds suspended beneath the throne, as well as in reports of the Spirit's awareness of charity and good deeds, the questioning by Munkar and Nakir, the torment of the grave and other matters, all of which indicate persistence. There is indeed a true return in this, though it also indicates the resurrection and raising thereafter, which is the resurrection of the body. This is possible by returning the soul to any body, whether of the original material or another, or from newly created material. For a person is defined by their soul, not their body, as the body's parts change from childhood to old age through emaciation, corpulence and nutritional replacement, and their temperament varies, yet they remain the same person. This is within God's power, constituting a true return of that soul, for it was previously unable to experience bodily pains and pleasures due to the loss of its instrument. And now an instrument akin to the first has been restored to it, making this a veritable return. The souls are not infinite, and what you mentioned regarding the impossibility of this due to souls being infinite and materials finite is baseless, for it rests on the premise of the world's eternity and the perpetual succession of cycles. For one who does not believe in the world's eternity, the souls separated from bodies are finite and not more numerous than existing materials. Even if it is conceded that they are more numerous, God, the Exalted, is capable of creation and initiating new existence, and denying this is to deny God's power over emergent events, a notion already refuted in the discussion of the world's temporality. As for reincarnation, there is no dispute over terminology. Regarding your second refutation, that this amounts to reincarnation, we do not quibble over names. What the sacred law has conveyed must be affirmed, whether termed reincarnation or not. We deny reincarnation in this world, but as for the resurrection, we do not deny it, whether called reincarnation or otherwise. God is capable of orchestrating matters. Your claim that every temperament prepared to receive a soul merits the emergence of a soul from natural principles reverts to the idea that the soul's emergence is by nature, not will, a notion already invalidated in the discussion of the world's temporality. How can it be, on your own doctrine, that a soul emerges only if no soul already exists, necessitating a new soul? Why then do separated souls not attach to prepared temperaments in wombs before the resurrection and raising, in this very world of ours? It may be said that separated souls require a different kind of preparation, the cause of which is fulfilled only at that appointed time. There is no implausibility in the preparation required for a complete, separated soul, differing from that required for a newly emergent soul that has not attained perfection through managing a body for a duration. God, the Exalted, is most knowing of those conditions, their causes, and the times of their occurrence. The sacred law has conveyed this, and since it is possible, it must be affirmed. Their second approach is akin to turning iron into a woven garment. They argue that it is not within the realm of possibility to transform iron into a woven turban for wearing, unless the iron's components are broken down into elements through causes that overpower the iron, reducing it to elemental simples, then reassembling those elements through stages of creation until they acquire the form of cotton. The cotton acquires the form of thread, and the thread acquires the known arrangement of weaving into a specific shape. If it were claimed that turning iron into a cotton turban is possible without these transformative stages in sequence, it would be deemed impossible. Indeed, one might imagine that these transformations could occur in a brief span, imperceptible to humans, leading them to assume it happened suddenly in one stroke. This, they argue, is also required for the renewal of a human body to which the soul returns. If this is understood, the resurrected and gathered human, if their body were of stone, ruby, pearl, or mere dust, would not be human. A human can only be conceived as such if formed in a specific shape, composed of bones, veins, flesh, cartilage, humours, and individual parts preceding the composite. The body cannot exist without organs, nor can composite organs exist without bones, flesh, and veins, nor can these individual components exist without humours, nor can the four humours exist without their materials derived from sustenance, nor can sustenance exist without being animal or plant, such as meat or grain, nor can animal and plant exist without the four elements blended under specific, lengthy conditions beyond what we have summarized. Thus, it is impossible for a human body to be renewed for the soul's return except through these processes. This, they claim, is impossible in every respect for numerous reasons. Can dust transform into a human merely by the command be, or must the causes for its transformation be prepared through these cycles? The causes are the depositing of a seed extracted from the essence of a human body into a womb where it is nourished by menstrual blood and sustenance over time until it forms into a clot, then an embryo, then a fetus, then a child, then a youth, then an elder. To say it becomes so by the command, "Be," is irrational, for dust cannot be addressed, and its transformation into a human without traversing these stages is impossible. Traversing these stages without the operation of these causes is also impossible, rendering resurrection impossible. Our objection is that this process is necessary, even if over a long duration. We concede that progression through these stages is indispensable for the body to become human, just as it is indispensable for iron to become a turban. If it remained iron, it would not be a garment, but must become spun cotton, then woven. Yet this can occur in an instant or over a period, and it has not been established that resurrection must occur in the briefest conceivable time. This is achievable through God's power, either directly without intermediaries or through causes, both of which are possible, as we have stated in the first issue of Natural Philosophy concerning the operation of customs. The conjunctions in existence are not necessarily bound by inevitability. Customs can be breached, so these matters can occur through God's power without the presence of their causes. Alternatively, it may occur through extraordinary intermediaries. The second possibility is that this happens through causes, but it is not necessary that the cause be the familiar one. Within the treasury of possibilities lie wonders and marvels unknown to us, denied by those who believe existence is limited to what they have witnessed, just as some deny magic, alchemy, talismans, miracles, and saintly wonders, though these are established by consensus through extraordinary causes unknown to them. One who denies the power of a magnet and then witnesses it marvels at it. Similarly, they are astonished, just as one who has never seen a magnet attracting iron and hears of it would deny it, saying, "Attraction of iron is unimaginable, except by a thread pulling it, as that is what is observed in attraction," until they see it and marvel, realizing their knowledge falls short of encompassing the wonders of divine power. Likewise, the atheists who deny resurrection and raising, when resurrected and witnessing the marvels of God's creation therein, will regret with a regret that avails them not, and grieve over their denial with a grief that benefits them not. And it will be said to them, "This is what you used to deny," as Tehafet 37:56, like those who deny extraordinary properties and strange phenomena. If a human were created rational from the outset, they would deny the creation of a human from a seed. If a rational human were created ab initio and told that this vile, uniform seed divides in a human womb into diverse organs, fleshy, nervous, bony, vascular, cartilaginous, and fatty, forming an eye in 7 distinct layers of temperament, a tongue and teeth differing in softness and hardness despite their proximity, and so on with the marvels of creation, their denial would be stronger than that of the atheists who said, "When we are decayed bones," Anatziat 79:11. Thus one must not deny what they have not witnessed. Does the denier of resurrection reflect on how they concluded that the causes of existence are limited to what they have seen? It is not far-fetched that there exists a method for reviving bodies other than what they have observed. Some reports mention that at the time of resurrection, a rain will cover the earth, its drops resembling seeds, mingling with the dust. What implausibility is there in divine causes containing something akin to this, unbeknownst to us, prompting the emergence of bodies and their readiness to receive the gathered souls? Does this denial rest on anything but mere incredulity? It may be said that divine action does not change and is cyclical. If it is argued that divine action follows a single, unchanging course, as God the Exalted has said, "Our command is but one, like a glance of the eye," Al-Qamar 54:50, "and you will not find in the way of God any change," Al-Ahzab 33:62, then these causes, if possible, should persist and repeat endlessly, and the current system of generation and reproduction in the world should continue indefinitely. After conceding repetition and cycles, it is not implausible that the method of affairs might differ every million years or so, yet even that change would be perpetual and eternal on a single course, for God's way admits no alteration. This arises from divine will, which is not predetermined in direction. The divine act emanates from divine will, and divine will is not fixed in orientation such that its system varies with differing directions. What emanates from it, in whatever form, remains ordered in a manner that encompasses all. The hereafter and resurrection will come to pass. If you allow the continuation of generation and reproduction by the current observed method, or the return of this method even after a long duration through repetition and cycles, you have negated the resurrection and the hereafter as indicated by the apparent meanings of the sacred law. For it would follow that such resurrections preceded our existence countless times and will recur endlessly in sequence. Nor is it possible to divide states into three. If you claim that God's way changes entirely to another kind, never returning to the current way, and the span of possibility is divided into three phases. A phase before the world's creation when God existed without a world, a phase after its creation in this form, and a final phase of conclusion in the resurrectionary method. Then consistency and order are disrupted, and God's way is altered, which is impossible. For this can only occur through a will that varies with circumstances, whereas the eternal will follows a single unchanging course, not differing with respect to times. This does not contradict the statement that God is capable of all things, Al-Baqarah 2:20. They claim this does not oppose our assertion of God's omnipotence, for we say God is capable of resurrection and raising and all possible matters, meaning that if he willed, he would act. It is not a condition of the truth of this statement that he must will or act. This is akin to saying someone is capable of severing their own neck or disemboweling themselves, which is true in the sense that if they willed, they could do so, though we know they will not will or act. Nor does it contradict saying, he does not will and does not act. Our statement that he does not will or act does not oppose our assertion that he is capable, meaning if he willed, he would act, for categorical propositions do not contradict conditional ones, as explained in logic. Our statement, if he willed he would act, is a conditional affirmative, while he did not will and did not act are two categorical negatives, and a categorical negative does not contradict a conditional affirmative. Thus, the evidence indicating an eternal will, not variegated, also indicates that the divine course of affairs can only be orderly, even if it varies in specific times, such variation itself being orderly through repetition and return. Anything beyond this is impossible. Our response is that it is possible to divide states into three. This argument draws from the issue of the world's eternity and the eternality of will. Let it be that the world is eternal, though we have refuted this and shown that it is not irrational to posit three phases: God existing without a world, then creating the world in the observed order, then initiating a second order as promised in paradise, then annihilating all until only God remains. This is possible were it not that the sacred law has conveyed that reward, punishment, paradise and hell have no end. This issue hinges on two matters: the temporality of the world and the possibility of an emergent event from an eternal essence, and the breach of customs by creating effects without causes or introducing causes on an unfamiliar course. We have already addressed both matters. Conclusion of the book. Are they disbelievers? If someone asks whether we definitively declare these individuals disbelievers and deem it obligatory to execute those who hold their beliefs, we respond that their disbelief must be affirmed in three matters. First, the issue of the world's eternity and their claim that all substances are eternal. Second, their assertion that God does not encompass knowledge of particular emergent entities. Third, their denial of the resurrection and gathering of bodies. These three issues are utterly incompatible with Islam, and whoever holds them believes in the falsehood of the prophets. They have articulated these views as a matter of expediency, presenting them as allegories for the masses to facilitate understanding, and this is blatant disbelief, a stance not held by any Islamic sect. As for other matters, their doctrines resemble those of various Islamic sects. Beyond these three principles, their interpretations of divine attributes and their belief in divine unity align closely with the Mu'tazilites. Their view on the inevitability of natural causes mirrors what the Mu'tazilites explicitly stated regarding generation. Likewise, much of what we have relayed from them has been articulated by factions within Islam, except for these three foundational issues. Thus, whoever deems the innovators among Islamic sects as disbelievers would also deem them disbelievers for these reasons, while whoever hesitates to pronounce disbelief would limit their condemnation to these three issues. As for us, we do not presently favour delving into the issue of declaring innovators disbelievers, nor what is valid or invalid therein, lest the discourse stray from the intent of this book. And God, the Exalted, is the one who guides to the truth.